after the defendant came over to you and spoke and then left, do you remember hearing her make further statements?
Yes, sir.
And do you remember her making further statements similar
I do.
to the statement to you?
Yes, sir.
Could you share with the jury what you remember her saying, not to you, but after she left you?
I remember hearing I hit him several other times, again, not directed to me, just kind of off in the background. I'd like to reiterate, we were really focused on the patient at that point. We were trying to provide care.
Thank you, sir.
So now, after Mr. Brennan asks you a few questions, now you remember her saying, I hit him a bunch more times. Correct?
I remember hearing it in the background several other times.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Never mentioned that on direct examination, did you?
I don't remember being asked about it, sir. I remember saying what was asked to me.
You were asked, did you ever hear the defendant, Ms. Reed, say anything about I hit him? And your answer was, she said to me, in answer to my question, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him 3 times, and that's it.
To me.
You didn't clarify that, oh my gosh, she's running around like a chicken with her head cut off, screaming I hit him to everybody else under the sun.
It was, again, it was behind me in the background
right.
as I was providing patient care. Again, that was not my focus.
Okay, so you didn't really hear her say anything in the background because you weren't focused on that, right?
I remember hearing a generalized commotion in the background, but again, that was not our focus.
So generalized commotion is very different than hearing her say, I hit him to other people. Correct? You'd agree with that?
Yes, sir.
So what you actually heard was the chaos and the commotion of a chaotic scene, correct? In the background.
In the background.
As you focused on your patient care, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, not specific words coming out of my client's mouth, correct?
To the question that I posed, do you know him?
You're right. We're off that question.
Okay.
That question, I got it.
Yes, sir.
Triple I hitters.
Correct.
But with regard to what Mr. Brennan just asked you, the generalized commotion, to use your phrase, in the background, you didn't hear any specific words coming out of my client's mouth, did you?
I heard I hit him. But again, it was in the background and it was not my focus.
Well, why didn't you say that on direct? That's kind of an important point. That's why you're here.
Again, if it was neglected on my part, it was not intentional.
Not intentional to neglect that part for the jurors on direct examination.
No, sir.
Certainly not intentional to neglect that part of your testimony on cross-examination.
No, sir.
But you decided to bring it up on recross examination when Mr. Brennan is asking you questions again, correct?
It was asked of me. Yes,
And
sir.
it was after, of course, that your new statement that you've never testified to before, ever, is this generalized commotion included a bunch of I hit hims in the background, correct?
Sir.
And that comes after you saw the video that clearly shows that when you describe having heard this statement, my client was nowhere around you, correct?
That segment of the video that you showed me,
Yes.
that was not the time frame in which she said that to me.
Well, that was the time frame when Flamati was giving CPR, correct?
He was doing CPR down prior to that as well.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Well, you just testified that you saw him standing up in a big yellow jacket and then kneel down and start giving CPR. We just watched that video. Correct?
But again, the clip of the video that you showed me,
Right.
that was not the segment in which he said that to me.
Well, that's what you're saying now, but what I'm asking is you described a very distinctive scene, a very, very specific scene.
Yes, sir. I remember it vividly.
She said, the I hit him phrase, when Flamati was down giving CPR, and you were kneeling down giving airway support, and he was doing rhythmic CPR chest compression.
Yes, sir. That's what happened.
And then I showed you that very scene, didn't I?
Yes, you showed me that clip prior to that.
I showed you the very scene that you described where Flamati gets down and starts chest compressions and never stops until the gurney is taken off the frame of the camera to the end. Isn't that what I showed you?
That is.
I didn't catch you then. You have a question. Can you do it again?
Sure. I don't know if I can do it again. I showed you the scene where firefighter Flamani gets down on his knees, begins chest compressions, and never stops until that gurney is taken off camera, off frame, into the ambulance. That's the clip I showed you, correct?
That's the clip you showed me.
And that's exactly when you described your vivid memory from 3.5 years ago. That's exactly the scene that you described when my client supposedly said, I hit him to you, correct?
Again, the clip that you showed me, that was not when it was said. That segment that you showed, that was not when it was said. It was said prior to that, when the three of us were together.
So Flamati was not giving chest compressions then?
He was. The CPR was a continuous effort throughout the resuscitation.
But we saw him start it. Firefighter Nuttall, we saw him start it. We saw him walk into the frame, kneel down, and begin the chest compressions, didn't we?
We did.
And at no point, at that time or after, did my client even approach you, did she, in that clip?
She did.
What?
Objection.
Just a question.
Sure,
Mr. Jones.
sure. Do you need to see that clip again?
Yes, please.
We're not going to show the video again. We've seen 2 videos. Which one is marked?
The
The
Commonwealth.
one with the timestamp in
Right.
the top?
It's the exact same video. One has timestamp, one doesn't. Just to be clear, you described a very detailed scene in which firefighter Flamati got down on the ground, on his knees, and began CPR.
Yes, sir.
We saw a clip that it played fully through.
Mm-hmm.
Starts and stops, but it played fully through, correct? You
Yes, sir.
agree with that? That was true and accurate video of what happened that day,
Yes, sir.
that morning, correct?
Correct.
And from the time firefighter Flamati began his CPR, he never stopped. Went all the way through until the gurney was taken off the camera, correct?
Correct.
You also described very clearly, before you saw the video, that the time when my client walked over and you had this dialogue and you heard this statement, it was during the time that firefighter Flamati was given the CPR, correct? You described it.
Yes, sir.
But when we actually see firefighter Flamati giving the CPR, as per your description, at no time did my client walk over and have a conversation with you, did she? In that video?
She did in the video.
In the portion that Mr. Brennan played you, was firefighter Flamati giving CPR at that point?
As I said previously
Was
as well.
he or was he not? Yes or no?
Objection.
I'm going to let the witness answer the question.
Firefighters Kelly and Flamati were trading off CPR. Tony started doing CPR, and it was passed off at one point to Firefighter Kelly. Firefighter Kelly at that time was a BLS EMT. Firefighter Flamati was a paramedic. They're going to move towards Firefighter Kelly performing CPR because at that time his skill set was not as advanced as Firefighter Flamati's, as Tony's. But they did switch off. That is a routine cardiac arrest. We switch off compressions.
But the video that Mr. Brennan showed you was earlier in time, a few seconds or a minute or two earlier.
Yes, sir.
You'd agree with that, correct?
I would.
And firefighter Flamati had not begun CPR, had he?
I don't believe so.
That's right. He hadn't. But that's the time that my client walked over your general area, correct?
Correct.
Before CPR was started, correct?
CPR was started immediately, sir.
Can we wrap this up?
I don't know if we can, Judge.
Give you a couple more minutes.
Do you understand the confusion?
Objection.
Sustained.
All right, a couple more questions on this. The video that Mr. Brennan showed you,
Yes, sir.
and you pointed to and said, oh, that's the time when she walked over and said the statement.
Yes, sir.
Remember that?
I do.
Firefighter Flamati was not even kneeling down giving CPR, was he at that point?
No,
The answer is yes or no?
no.
Okay, he was not. Later, as the video continues to run, at some point, we see firefighter Flamati enter the screen, kneel down in that bright, reflective yellow jacket, and begin CPR, correct?
Yes, sir.
You had previously said that when you heard the statement and she walked over to you, it was when firefighter Flamati was giving CPR, correct?
Yes, sir.
And at no point, you'll agree with me, we just played the video, at no point after he started giving CPR did my client come anywhere near you. Isn't that what the video showed?
That was the segment that you showed me.
You indicated on redirect, that Mr. O'Keefe did not have any injuries to the left side of his body.
Not that I recall.
Isn't it true that in addition to the egg on the right side of his head, he also had a black eye on the left side?
I remember that the swelling had started to, it's referred to kind of as raccoon eyes. It's a bruising of both eyes.
Do you remember
battle signs.
Do you remember saying, in answer to the question, did it look like in addition to the egg on the right side of his head in the front, did he also have a black eye on the left side? Your answer is, if memory serves correct, yes.
Yes, sir.
So it's not true that he didn't have any injuries on the left side of his body or face, correct?
That swelling kind of migrates over time to both sides. That is a common occurrence for both eyes to be swollen.
Did he have an injury to the left side of his face?
He did not.
Did he have a black left eye?
Yes, he did.
Would you consider a black eye an injury?
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you the question again then. Did he have an injury to the left side of his face?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. One last question. You indicated that it was a chaotic scene outside on that front yard.
Yes, sir.
Fire engines, ambulances, patrol vehicles, engines running, diesel engines, flashing lights, people screaming, people talking over the howling wind, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever see the homeowner come out the front door?
Don't recall.
You don't recall, or you didn't?
I have no idea who the homeowner is.
And you never saw anybody come out of the front of the house?
No, sir.
That's all I have.
One issue. Briefly.
I want to see counsel at sidebar.
Good morning, Ms. McCabe.
Good morning.
When was the last time you spoke with Carrie Roberts before your testimony today?
She called me last night.
What did y'all discuss?
She asked if my daughters were going to be staying home from school today because her daughter would possibly join them.
Did you discuss anything having to do with your testimony?
Not my testimony, no.
Did you discuss anything in that conversation with her prior testimony?
No.
Are you aware that she testified last week?
Yes.
Did you discuss anything after that, after she testified with her about her testimony?
No.
We know that through her testimony that you had a conversation with her the morning that she testified.
Yes.
Right? did you discuss what you anticipated to be her testimony before, in that conversation, before she testified?
No.
Have you and Ms. Roberts ever discussed anything about either one of your testimonies, either in the last proceeding or in anticipation of this proceeding?
No.
So for the entirety of the last year, even though you both went through a proceeding last year where you both testified under oath and it was highly, highly publicized, neither one of you, your good friend Carrie Roberts and you, have ever discussed either of your testimonies between that time and this time.
No, we've discussed the case, and we've discussed what happened that moment, the moments of the morning, but we have not discussed testimony.
Okay, so let's break that down for a second. I'm talking about, because the timing matters, I'm just asking at this point, if you'll bear with me, just the year from last year at a different proceeding to this year, you have discussed this case
Yes,
with Ms. Roberts.
many times, yes.
And you've discussed the specifics of her memory, which would be reflected in her testimony, correct?
We talked about what happened that morning.
So you were talking about what she remembers happening that morning, correct?
No, what happened that morning.
Okay, so not to put too fine a point on it, Ms. McCabe, but if you ask me what I had for dinner last night, it's my memory of what I had for dinner last night. Would you agree with that?
Sustained.
Did you talk about her perception of what happened that morning during the last year?
We've talked about what has happened, yes.
Okay, so I'm trying to break it down between you and Ms. Roberts. You've discussed her perceptions and her memory of what happened, as well as, and separate and apart from, your memory and your perceptions, correct?
Correct.
So there have been circumstances in which you and Ms. Roberts have compared, by definition, what she remembers versus what you remember, correct?
I wouldn't say compare.
Now let's move to well, what would you say in terms of what you've discussed and why?
I would say that we've both talked about what we've discussed, but it wasn't like a comparison. We weren't comparing anything.
You've talked about what you discussed. What does that mean? Talked about your testimony?
No, we've discussed what happened that moment,
Right.
and in those moments. So, when I got a phone call, and that's my story. I got a phone call in the morning, and then Carrie can say, yeah, I got a phone call as well.
As you said, that's your story, correct?
Not my story. It's
Those
the
were your
truth.
words.
It's the truth.
Okay. So, for instance, when you got a phone call at 4:53 in the morning, Carrie Roberts wasn't there, correct?
Correct.
But you've discussed that with her.
Correct.
And you've told her what your perception of that, your memory of that phone call was, even though she was not recipient to and did not witness that phone call, correct?
I've told her about the phone call, correct.
As well as many other details that she was not privy to personally, correct?
Correct.
Conversations that you've had, for instance, conversations that you claim you've had with Miss Reed, correct?
Correct.
And you've told her what your perception is of those conversations, or your memory was or is of those conversations with Miss Reed, correct?
Which conversations with Miss
Any
Reed?
conversations, just anything that she wasn't privy to. You've discussed that with her.
Some things, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And conversely, Ms. McCabe, obviously, she's also discussed certain perceptions and memories that she has about this case, and the facts of this case, as she recalls them, that you were not necessarily privy to, correct?
Yes,
Things that may have taken place outside your presence, correct?
correct.
And you've talked about things, she's talked to you about things, now I'm getting myself confused. Y'all have talked about things that were outside of her perception and outside of your perception. And you've shared those with each other.
We've shared our experiences. We've become very close. We both lived through a traumatic experience.
How many times would you say you and Ms. Roberts have discussed your individual perceptions of what you remember happening on the 28th or the 29th of January 2022? How many times?
It would be hard to put a number on that. We talk about, it's hard. We're bonded. We talk about the trauma that we relive every day. Karen called us for help, and we both answered the phone.
And that bonding is the glue that holds you two together is this case, correct?
Yes.
So that probably, by definition, is the foundation of many, many, many of your conversations. Would you agree?
We've grown into friends where we talk about many other things
Sure.
besides the case.
Sure, the movie you saw last weekend and what the kids are doing next week.
Yes, and yes, absolutely. We
Okay,
talk
so-
many different things, just like girlfriends do.
I'm just concerned with and asking you about the subject matter of this case and the details and the facts of this case. You two have probably talked hundreds of times, that's fair to say, about your individual perceptions, your respective perceptions of this case, correct?
This happened 3 years ago, and we've talked about it time and time again. This case has traumatized us, so
And
it's a
talking
huge
about-
part of our lives.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, it's, I'm sorry. I believe it just, I meant traumatized our lives.
Okay. It would be impossible for you two to have had so many conversations about your respective perceptions of the details of that day without that influencing the other person, correct? You've somehow been influenced by Miss Roberts' perceptions and her memories, correct?
I don't think I would say influenced.
Would you say that she's been influenced by your perceptions and your memories?
Objection.
Would you say that, Ms. McCabe?
No, I wouldn't.
Next question.
How many times have you met with anybody from the DA's office? And I'm just going to limit the time frame right now in anticipation of your appearance in this trial, yesterday and today.
I'd say roughly 4 or 5.
Can you give me a time frame when those 4 or 5 meetings were?
I don't have dates. I do remember at one point I met with Mr. Brennan. He was new to the case, so I went in and he introduced himself.
How long ago was that?
I
Weeks or months?
I can't give you a time frame. I'm sorry.
Do you think it was last summer?
No.
Do you think it was?
No, it was more recent.
Okay.
Yeah,
It
sorry.
wasn't in the fall of last year?
No.
It was in 2025 sometime?
I believe so,
You
yes.
think it might have been February, January?
Again, I can't give you an exact. I'm sorry.
All right. I want to talk about the time frames of those conversations, then I'll ask you a little bit more about those conversations. So that was the first meeting that you had was with Mr. Brennan in anticipation of your testimony. What were the subsequent 4 meetings or so that you've had? With whom and approximately what time?
Okay, so another meeting with Mr. Brennan. Are you looking for who was
Sure.
there?
Who
All
else
right.
was there?
I mean, can I give you a general answer? I didn't write down like every meeting who was there, but
Of course.
generally, okay.
Was Mr. Lally there?
During 1 or 2 of the meetings, he was, yes.
Was Ms. McLaughlin there?
Yes.
Was there anybody else from the DA's office there?
The officer or trooper Tully was there at one. Trooper Buchanan was there at one. The witness advocates were there. And again, give or take the particular meeting.
Those are 2 meetings that you've talked about with Mr. Brennan and others. What about the 3rd meeting?
No, I'm sorry. I was lumping a few of them together.
Sure, understood.
I apologize.
How many meetings would you have? Let's just start there. How many meetings have you had with Mr. Brennan and either staff or colleagues?
So after the first initial meeting, I
Right.
would say, again, I didn't write them down. Off the top of my head, I can think of 2 or 3 more after that.
Okay.
Excuse me, first initial one.
So that's either 4 or 5 meetings with Mr. Brennan and some combination of his colleagues, Mr. Lally, Ms. McLaughlin perhaps, Mr. Nelson perhaps,
Yes.
the other employee of the DA's office, and Troopers Buchanan and Trooper Tully.
Correct.
You asked questions about at any of these meetings. I'm just going to lump them all together. Any of
Okay.
these 5 meetings. By the way, when was most recent?
Last night, I had a Zoom call in regards, I think the court asked them to
Yes, I'm going
Yeah,
to stop you right there.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to ask a different question, and if you don't
Okay.
mind, I'm just going to lead you through this question.
Okay.
You had a conversation last night. I'm not interested in that particular conversation. That
Okay.
was for a very specific purpose. I'm asking you about everything leading up to, but not including last night's conversation, okay?
Okay.
So let's just leave that one out. You've had, I think you mentioned, either 4 or 5 other meetings with Mr. Brennan and some combination of his colleagues and or law enforcement.
Yeah, and I might have, in the 5, included that one from last night.
Okay, fair enough. Were you asked questions in those, we're just going to call them 4 meetings. Were you asked questions during those 4 meetings about your testimony at the first proceeding last year?
I reviewed I did review some of my testimony, yes.
In what format?
I watched-
Paper transcript or
No, we just watched a little bit of it.
do you watch your direct examination?
A little bit, yes.
Did you watch your cross-examination?
A little, yes.
Who cross-examined you?
You did,
That was me.
yes.
And did you watch the redirect or any part of it?
No,
Did you watch any part of any subsequent version of recross or additional questions that you were asked?
I don't believe so, no.
Was there a specific area that Mr. Brennan asked you to look at and review in terms of your direct or your cross-examination?
No,
Did you watch the entirety of the direct examination and the entirety of the cross-examination?
I do not believe so, no.
Were you questioned by Mr. Brennan following your review of that direct and cross-examination?
No.
So he didn't ask you any questions about any of your answers?
I don't, he showed me a dash cam and would ask me to point out who's this, who's that, a waterfall video, is this you, is this somebody? Those were the type of questions that he asked me.
What about any discussion about your demeanor and how you performed in the last proceeding? Objection.
Sustained.
I'll ask it a different way. What about your demeanor? I'm using probably a poor word, perform. How you came across, your demeanor in the last proceeding? Objection.
Sustained.
Did you discuss changing your demeanor in any way, shape, form, or fashion from the last trial to, the last proceeding to this trial, my mistake. From the last proceeding to this trial, was your demeanor ever discussed?
No, I was just told to slow down, answer the question, and, answer it to the best of my memory.
Was there any discussion about talking about your background, for instance, your family and your children and being a sports mom, as you talked about in your direct examination?
No, I believe I did that in the previous one as well.
Was there any discussion about crafting your testimony in any way to suggest a softer approach?
No.
Was there any discussion about how to develop your testimony from beginning to end? I object.
Sustained.
Did Mr. Brennan ask you about, or let me ask it a different way, did Mr. Brennan take you through a series of questions, for instance, as almost a test run of questions that you might be asked either on direct examination or cross-examination?
No.
Did you practice your testimony with any member of the DA's office?
No.
Were there any sessions where you sat and was subjected to a cross-examination, like a fake cross-examination or a fake direct examination?
No, there
Anything
wasn't.
like that?
No.
What were the things that stand out in your mind? You said you had at least 4 meetings. How long was each meeting, by the way, ish?
The first meeting, I think, was fairly quick. It was just the introduction.
30 minutes, less than 30 minutes?
I don't want to give a time because I'm not sure,
Okay.
but it was fairly quick, yes.
Okay. What about the second meeting?
Again, I don't know specific meetings, but I can tell you that there was a longer one where I did watch some dash cam video, look at different pictures, things like that.
What kind of pictures did you look at? Other than the dash cam video?
The pictures of John's house.
Okay. The same photos that we saw today?
Yes.
How long in total would you say all of those meetings were? Just taking them all together.
I really can't give you an estimate. I think the first one was fairly quick. The second one, one of them was a little bit longer, maybe a couple hours.
Okay. Then the third one, was that also a couple hours, or was that one fairly quick?
That was fairly quick, yes.
So fair to say between 2, 3, 4 hours total meeting times?
Again, I'd have to probably go back and look at the date and the time. I really can't give you a specific amount of time. I apologize.
Did Trooper Tully or Trooper Buchanan ask you any questions during the course of any of these meetings?
Regarding the case, no, but we did briefly talk about how my kids were, how their kids were.
But they didn't ask you any questions about your testimony, about about the case, about your memories, about specific facts?
I do not believe so, no.
During any of these meetings, was anybody taking notes? Ms. McLaughlin, Mr. Lally, Mr. Brennan, any of the troopers?
No, I don't believe so.
So there was several hours worth of meetings with you, and nobody scribed any notes that you saw?
None that I saw, no.
And these meetings were not recorded?
I do not believe so, no.
Ms. McCabe, I'm going to ask you a series of questions about your family because I just want to make sure it's crystal clear who's who. You're married to Matt McCabe, correct?
Yes.
Your sister is Nicole Albert.
Yes.
Nicole is married to Brian Albert.
Yes.
It was Brian Albert's home that you were at, 34 Fairview, that you arrived at where John's body was found, correct?
Yes.
The same home where that late night gathering was on January 28th going into the morning of the 29th, correct?
Yes.
Would you consider yourself to be close with your sister Nicole and Brian?
Yes, very close.
Your families, it's not just you and Nicole, your whole families are close, correct?
Yes, we have a very close family.
How long have you known Brian Albert?
Since I was in kindergarten.
You consider him, even though he is not blood related to you, you consider him family?
Yes.
In addition to Brian and Nicole Albert, you're also very close with Chris and Julie Albert, correct?
Yes.
Just to be clear, and I'm going to do this slowly,
Okay.
Brian Albert's younger brother is Chris Albert, correct?
Yes.
Chris Albert is married to Julie Albert.
Yes.
You consider Chris and Julie family, even though there may not be a blood relation as well, correct?
Yes.
Chris Albert is a Canton Select Board member, is that right?
Now he is, yes.
And the Canton, that's in Canton? I said Select Board member. Did I mention Canton Select Board member?
It is in Canton,
Okay.
yes.
All right, obviously it's in Canton. The Canton Police Department reports to the Select Board, correct?
I'm not aware.
You're not aware of that echelon?
No.
Okay. You're aware that Brian Albert, your friend of, I'm not going to say how many years, but since kindergarten, was a Boston police officer.
Yes.
He had been a lifetime law enforcement officer for some 30 years before he retired recently, correct?
Yes.
He's a trained first responder, obviously.
Yes.
Brian Albert and Chris Albert have another brother named Kevin Albert, correct?
Yes.
Kevin Albert is a detective with a police department, correct?
Yes, I believe that's his title. I'm not
Which
100%.
Which police department is Kevin Albert associated with?
Canton.
And you've grown up in Canton your whole life, you indicated.
Yes.
Your entire family has grown up in Canton, correct?
Yes.
And you, Ms. McCabe, have 3 sisters. Nicole, we've talked about. You also have a sister named Shelley, is that right?
Michelle, yes.
Michelle? Mm-hmm. And Denise, who you mentioned in your direct examination.
Yes.
Nicole is also known by nickname, is that right?
Yes.
What is Nicole's nickname within the family?
Coco.
Does Shelley also have a nickname? Well, I guess Shelley is the shortened
Shelley
name for
is.
Michelle, correct?
Yes.
What about Denise?
She's Dee Dee.
Dee Dee?
Yeah, like
Okay.
Deedee.
Your father lives close by in a neighboring town, correct?
Yes.
Don't tell me the town, but it's relatively close to Canton.
20 minutes, yes.
Okay. His name is Tom Weeks.
Yes.
There are, I'm not going to go through all of them right now because the family tree is getting large, but there are children, cousins, second cousins, nephews, aunts, uncles. There's a combination of familial relations within that set of folks that I just talked about, Chris and Brian and Nicole and you and Matt and the folks that we've just talked about.
Yes.
That family, that large family, celebrates holidays together, I'm guessing?
We don't typically, celebrate with Kevin and Chris, but my family does, yes.
Along with Brian, Albert, and Nicole?
Yes, of course.
Birthdays are celebrated within that family?
Yes.
Go on vacations together, I'm guessing?
Yes.
Gatherings like the one on the 28th?
Yes.
Special events?
Yes.
Spend weekends together?
Yes.
You mentioned a lot of sporting events. There's a lot of sporting events that y'all go to together.
Yes.
So it is very, very easy to see that it's an extremely close-knit family.
Yes.
And naturally, you're very protective of your family, as anybody would be.
Yes, I love my family.
You also said that you knew, and your words, liked Karen Reed, my client, on the 28th of January 2022, correct?
Yes.
But she very much is not family, correct?
Correct.
She certainly was not as important to you as your actual family, the Alberts, the McCabe's, the folks associated with them. Is that right?
Yes.
On January 28th, 2022, members of the Albert family and the McCabe family all went to a bar together, had drinks together that night. The Waterfall, we've heard a little bit about that, correct?
Correct.
Ultimately, you went back to your sister's house for the after party that we've heard so much about. That was at Brian Albert's house, is that right?
Yes.
You've been interviewed, I think you indicated multiple times, you didn't even give a number of how many times you've been interviewed by police in this case, is that right?
Yes.
Your family is connected to people at Boston Police Department. We've just talked about that. Brian Albert, is that right?
Well, was a Boston police officer.
Right. So when I say connected, there is some familial or family or friendly connection to that police agency, Boston Police Department. It'd be Brian Albert in this case, correct?
The objection sustained.
There's also a connection to the Massachusetts State Police through your family, is that right?
Objection.
So define connection.
Julie and Chris Albert are very, very close to you, right?
I'm close with Julie and Chris, yes.
You're aware that Michael Proctor's sister, Courtney, is basically best friends with Julie.
No, I'm not aware of that. She's best friends with Julie's sister, Jillian.
Okay, so Courtney is best friends with Jillian, who's sisters to Julie,
Yes.
who's married to Chris, who's an Albert, who's the little brother of Brian Albert.
Yes.
Okay? And Canton Police Department, there's also some connections there as well, Kevin Albert being the most obvious of them.
Objection.
I'm going to allow that. Do you have a connection with the Canton Police Department?
Not with the department, but with Kevin Albert.
Right, who's a member of the department.
Yes, but my relationship's with him.
Understood. You've indicated that you've been interviewed by law enforcement agents associated with with Canton Police Department. That'd be Officer Lank.
Yes.
Can I
and
stop
Officer
you for a
Good.
second and see counsel at sidebar, please?
Sure. Canton Police Department either, correct?
Correct.
Completely separate agency, is that right?
Yes.
During the course of that interview, those officers informed you very specifically, Ms. McCabe, that it is a crime to lie to them even during an interview, correct?
Yes.
Those law enforcement officers informed you that they were investigating certain circumstances attendant to John O'Keefe's death, correct?
They were very vague on what they were.
Understood.
I don't know what they were investigating.
But you did understand that it was having something to do with your involvement at 34 Fairview on January 28th, 29th, 2022.
Objection.
As a witness or otherwise?
Objection.
Sustained as to certain terminologies.
Sure. Let me see if I can rephrase that Ms. McCabe, you were aware of the subject matter of their interview, right? They weren't interviewing about a car you bought last year, correct?
Correct.
They were interviewing you about, basically, about what you're testifying to here, correct?
When I first spoke with them, the conversation was pretty vague.
But the subject matter, vague or specific, was about this subject matter.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. They first contacted you telephonically, called you on the phone. Is that right?
Actually, they walked up to my car.
They walked up to your car.
Yes.
Okay, that was the very first introduction, correct?
Yes.
At that point, they had not identified themselves, correct?
They didn't know.
All right, and at that point, you told them that you were not Jennifer McCabe. They asked you who you were, and you said, I'm Nicole.
I thought they were like selling something, so I was like, oh no, I'm not the homeowner.
Fair enough, fair enough. However, after you said, I'm not Jennifer McCabe, you walked into the house, they then called you on the phone.
Yes,
They were
correct.
still sitting outside your house.
I don't know where they were, but they did call me.
They were close by.
I'm not aware.
Well, the call came almost immediately after you walked back in the house, correct?
I'm not sure how much time had passed.
Give me an idea. It wasn't an hour. It was
No, it was
5 to 10
soon
minutes.
after. I'm just not sure. I can't tell you where they were located. I'm sorry.
okay. They told you that they would. At that point, they identified themselves as being law enforcement agents, correct?
When they called me, yes.
And they told you at that time that they were not with Canton Police. You knew at least they were not with Canton Police Department. They were not troopers with Massachusetts State Police, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And they told you that they would like to have an interview with you. They'd like to have a sit-down talk with you, correct?
Yes.
You told them that you would be willing to submit to an interview, but you needed about 10 minutes to get ready, correct?
Yes.
You ultimately did allow them into your home, and you did sit down for a formal interview with them, correct?
Yes, brief, but yes.
And it was during that formal interview inside the home that it was explained to you that it would be a crime for you to lie to them on any material issue, correct?
Yes.
During the course of your interview, your husband, Matt McCabe, came home. Is that right?
Yes.
As these law enforcement agents continue to question you, as law enforcement officers continue to question you at some point, you inform them that you did not feel comfortable with any further questioning and you suspended the interview, correct?
Yes.
Before leaving, however, those same law enforcement officers asked you if you had contacted anyone in those 10 minutes when you indicated, I need 10 minutes to get ready, between the time they called you and the time that they showed up and came inside your house, correct?
Yes.
You told them that you had contacted your husband, Matt McCabe,
Yes.
which is why he came home, right?
Yes.
And you told them that you had called Carrie Roberts before they interviewed you, correct? At that moment.
I'm not 100% sure, but if you have it, I'll.
Give me
It
one.
seems like something I would do, but if you have it, could show me.
Absolutely. If I may have just a moment, Your Honor.
Okay.
May I approach briefly?
Yes.
First, I'm going to ask you, Ms. McCabe, if you recognized that as being a report of that interview, just generally, yes or no?
It appears to be, yes.
May I approach the witness stand and stand by the witness stand for a couple of questions?
Yes.
Thank you. If I can have that.
Sure.
I want to direct your attention, if I may, and for court and counsel, page 3 of 4, starting with the second to the last full paragraph, going into page 5, top full page 4, top full paragraph.
Okay.
If you could review those two paragraphs, read them to yourself, and then look up and let me know when you're finished. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. McCabe.
Yes.
Did reviewing those paragraphs refresh your recollection as to whether or not, as to what you told those agents initially? I'm sorry, what you told those officers initially from that other law enforcement agency, about who you contacted in that 10-minute interval?
Yes, I told them.
And you told them that you had contacted your husband, Matt McCabe,
Yes.
and Carrie Roberts.
Correct.
I want to stick with that for just a quick second. One of the first calls you made after being contacted by these other law enforcement officers from a different agency, one of the first calls you made was to Carrie Roberts. Is that right?
She was the first one.
That's what I'm asking. One of the first two calls you made, your husband,
Right.
come home, there's law enforcement outside my door, I'm guessing is what you said, correct?
I don't remember my exact words now, but I did ask him to come home. Correct.
And
Yes.
Carrie Roberts.
Okay. Yes.
You wanted to let Ms. Roberts know that you had been contacted by certain officers from a different agency, correct?
I was curious if they had already been to her.
That
Because-
was my next
Oh,
question.
yeah.
You also wanted to find out had these law enforcement officers from this different agency contacted her, correct?
Yes, because typically, if
I
you
just
enter
asked
our
yes or no.
town, she's.
Ms. McCabe, yes or no?
Oh, sorry. I was just trying to
That's
explain.
okay.
I'm sorry.
Is that why you contacted her, to find out if, in fact, they had contacted her before you? Yes or no?
Yes.
And you also wanted to find out what she told them, if she had been contacted by them, correct? That was your motive in calling her.
No.
So you just wanted to find out, had she been contacted, but
Yes.
if she had said yes, you weren't going to say, and what the hell did they say? What did they ask you?
Well, I can't say what I would have answered, what I would have asked her, but I know I was calling to see if they had been there. Yes, that
was
is
your
correct.
that was your intent.
I called to ask her if they had been there. Yes.
So that was your intent. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Your motive in calling Carrie Roberts at that moment, before your interview, was to ensure that your story would line up with her story, Ms. McCabe. Isn't that right?
No, that is not.
You wanted to find out if she had talked to these particular law enforcement officers and what she had told them, so that your story could somehow align, or it could inform how you responded to questions that they asked you. Isn't that true?
That's not true. We both know what happened. We don't have to have a story. There is no story. There's what happened, and that's it.
So if that's true, Ms. McCabe, you have no reason to call Carrie and ask her if she had been contacted by these law enforcement agents, because it's just the truth, correct?
We're going through this whole experience together. We call each other about everything.
There would
That's
be no
nothing
reason
more
to
than that.
So
I'm
let her
sorry.
let her finish her answer. Go ahead, Ms. McCabe, you can finish that.
There's nothing more than me calling and saying, hey, did they come to your house? That's what we did when the media showed up, when Miss Reed's private investigator showed up. We just give each other the heads up, hey, somebody's coming, because we're just like normal moms. We're not used to this.
And that's helpful in making sure that the stories she tells are consistent with the stories you tell to different law enforcement agencies, correct?
No, we are not telling stories.
So let her finish. You said no what?
I said, no, we're not telling stories. We don't have to compare.
And if in fact what we were telling you was just the truth, there would be no reason for you to inquire about who's contacted her when, for what purpose. Would there? There'd be no reason. Would there?
There's no inquiring. It's like when you're when the ice cream truck was at the street next door and I'm saying, did the ice cream truck come? It's really that simple.
So you asked a question,
Not about an ice cream truck.
an argumentative question, and she responded in kind. Next question. Mr.
Thank you.
Jackson.
You also testified in your direct examination, staying with Ms. Roberts for just a second, about a timeline that you and Ms. Roberts put together, correct?
Yes.
That's another example of the two of you talking about your own perceptions and comparing and contrasting those perceptions and putting it down on paper, correct?
No,
Is that yes or no?
it's a no. Can I explain or no?
I'm sure Mr. Brennan will have follow-up questions. After you gave that answer to those law enforcement officers at that separate law enforcement agency, they asked you, was there anyone else that you contacted in that 10-minute period before we got a chance to talk to you? Mm-hmm. And your answer was no, correct?
Correct.
And that was a lie, correct?
It wasn't a lie, no.
Was it true? Was it the truth or a lie?
It wasn't a lie.
Okay, so it was the truth. You had not spoken to any other person between the time they contacted you telephonically and you said, I need 10 minutes, and then they came in the door. During that arc of time, you didn't talk to anybody else or contact anybody else other than Matt McCabe and Carrie Roberts. Now you're testifying that was a true statement. Yes or no, ma'am?
I can't answer that yes or no.
It's pretty binary. Had you talked, well, let me ask you this. In point of fact, you did talk to other people. You contacted others, in addition to Matt McCabe and Carrie Roberts, correct? Yes or no?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so when you said no to the answer, did you contact anyone other than Matt and Carrie? That would be, by definition, Ms. McCabe, a lie, correct?
No.
It's not a lie? Is there some shade of lie that I'm not aware of?
It's the way you're asking the question. If
Okay,
I
let
could
me ask it a different
explain,
way.
if I could explain,
Let me ask it a
it will
different
make
way.
more sense to you.
The agents asked you, I'm going to go over this one more time, then I'm going to move on. The agents
Okay.
asked you, in fact, did you contact anyone between the time we called you and set up the interview and the 10 minutes before we walked in the door? They asked you that question, correct?
The objection sustained. Watch the choice of language.
I'm sorry. I meant the law enforcement agency. That law enforcement agency, the members of that law enforcement agency contacted you.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. They asked you who you had contacted between the time they first telephoned you and walked in the door 10 minutes later. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Data point number one. Data point number two, you told them Matt and Carrie, correct?
Correct.
You had actually contacted, they then asked you, did you contact anyone else other than Matt and Carrie, correct?
Correct.
And you said no. Is that correct?
At that moment, I said no, yes.
Correct. At that, or any moment.
No, at that moment, because they had just come in my house.
I asked you,
Only one person can talk at a time.
you said the word no,
She
correct?
was finishing her answer. Finish your answer.
I had said no because I was in a situation where there are two officers from a different agent had come in, were asking me questions, or they had said, can I come in and ask you questions? At first I thought they were selling something. Then they identified themselves. I just dropped my kids off at school. Going to be completely honest, I hadn't brushed my teeth. So I kind of made some phone
Objection, Your Honor.
calls.
This is
That's,
non-responsive.
so next question, Mr.
Thank you.
Jackson.
Ms. McCabe, after you said no, that you hadn't contacted anybody else, those two law enforcement officers from that separate agency who had told you it was a crime to lie to them, they left, correct?
Yes.
Subsequent to that, Mr. McCabe, your husband,
Objection.
Sustained.
They left you their card so you could call them if need be, correct?
Yes, they did.
And you, in fact, did call them back, correct?
Yes, I did.
Without telling me the content of the conversation you had, did you have a conversation with Mr. McCabe?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you call them back and say, I'm calling you back because my husband told me
Objection.
that I lied to you and I better clear that lie up?
So sustained. Jurors, remember I told you before that only answers to questions are evidence? Be mindful of that.
May we approach?
Next, yes.
May I?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. You ultimately called these officers back, correct?
Yes.
And you explained to them that you had been untruthful with them, correct?
I explained that I had forgotten to mention a couple of people that I had reached out to.
You had forgotten. Is that your testimony?
Yes.
You had forgotten. You remembered Matt and you remembered Carrie, but you had forgotten the others that you had just contacted maybe 30 minutes before.
Yes.
There were 5 people that you contacted, weren't there?
I contacted Matt.
Let's go through them. I'm just
Yeah.
asking yes or no. You know them?
I know 4 off the top of my head.
Okay, let's go through them.
Okay.
You contacted your husband, correct?
Yes.
You contacted Carrie Roberts, correct?
Yes.
You contacted Peggy O'Keefe, correct?
Yes.
Then, Ms. McCabe, you contacted the district attorney's office, correct?
My witness advocate.
The district attorney's office.
My witness advocate who works
Miss-
for the district attorney's
Thank
office.
you, Ms. McCabe.
Yes.
And you also left out that you contacted Brian Albert himself, correct?
Yes, my brother-in-law.
For some reason, your brother-in-law, who's the 30-year Boston police detective, correct?
Yes.
And on whose lawn John O'Keefe was found dead or dying,
Objection.
I'll allow that.
correct?
Yes.
For some reason, you did not want these officers to know that you had communicated specifically with Brian Albert, the homeowner, just before you talked to them, correct?
No, incorrect.
There was some reason that was important enough for you to lie about that, even though you had been admonished that it's a crime to lie about that to those officers, correct?
Incorrect. I didn't lie to them. I had forgotten who I had called.
And all of a sudden, you had an epiphany right after they walked out the door?
Yes. Matt said, who have you spoken to?
Objection.
I'm going to allow it. It's out. You're not to go any further, Mr. Jackson.
Ms. McCabe, I want to draw your attention to January 28. You had gone out drinking with your family at the Waterfall Bar and Grill, correct?
I went with my husband and met my sister, yes.
And met the other family, correct? The other family members, meaning
My niece.
Matt McCabe, Nicole, Chris, Julie, Caitlin, correct?
Yes,
And I think you mentioned Tristan was there as well.
yes,
You were later joined by Nick and Karina Kolakithis, is that right?
yes,
Ultimately, Brian Higgins showed up,
yes,
and Brian Albert showed up.
yes.
You previously indicated that Caitlin's boyfriend, Tristan, left early for whatever reason. He had errands to run or had to get to bed early for some reason, is that right?
He left before us, yes.
So he didn't stay through the shank of the evening.
Through the what?
The shank of the evening, through the course of the evening.
Oh, okay. Hmm.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And ultimately, at the waterfall, John O'Keefe and Miss Reed showed up as well.
Yes.
You didn't see any tension at all between John O'Keefe and Karen that night, did you?
No, I didn't.
They appeared to be getting along,
Yeah. Yes.
sort of a normal couple having a nice evening out together.
Yes.
Neither John nor Karen Reed appeared drunk or inebriated, out of sorts.
No, I wouldn't categorize them as drunk or inebriated.
And not
But again, I don't know what the definition of drunk is.
Well, that's a fair statement. I'm
Yeah.
not asking for their BAC, but they didn't appear to be stumbling around, falling all over themselves, and sloppy drunk, correct?
No.
Out of control, nothing like that.
Nope.
Okay. You did see Brian Higgins and Brian Albert at a high top table, sort of together, through the course of that evening, correct?
We were all kind of around like a long high top table.
And John O'Keefe, and as you look at I'm going to use the perspective of the video that we've seen, that camera angle that we've seen. John O'Keefe and Miss Reed were sort of further off in the corner, closer to the bar rather than to the tables, correct? Along with the Kolakithises and those, and you, as a matter of fact.
Yes. At different times, everyone was kind of moving around. I spent the majority of the time that Karen and John were there speaking with Karen.
And that was sort of over toward the bar.
We weren't in the bar, we were at the table, so it was one side of the table and the other. It wasn't
enough.
like far away.
Right.
Kind of, yeah.
I'm using the bar sort of as a landmark for I didn't mean you were sidled up to the bar, but just
Yeah.
sort of as a landmark. You were closer to the bar than, for instance, in the foreground, which would be the high top tables in the foreground, correct?
We were just on the other, I'm confused about this. We were just on the other side of the table.
Okay. You did see on the opposite side of that high top table, that's where Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were standing, talking, and communicating with each other. Is that right?
I believe so. I was talking to Miss Reed. I wasn't really paying attention to them.
Did you ever see those two men get physical with one another that night?
I did not that night. I did not see that.
Have you ever seen a full review in all the hours that you've sort of prepped for your testimony? Have you been shown that waterfall video from the time you got there until the time you left?
Not the full video, but I have seen a good portion of it, yes.
Okay, and you've certainly seen the portion where Brian Albert and Brian Higgins get up from the table and sort of get physical with one another, correct?
I would say more like play fighting, and Nick Kolakidis was a little bit like doing it with them as well.
Okay, so the physical part is, all I'm asking is, did they touch each other? Yes.
I guess, yeah.
And you described it as play fighting, correct?
But I don't, if we could watch the video, it might explain it better than I could.
We probably will.
Oh, okay.
But right now, I'm just asking about your memory. You remember them squaring off on one another, playing, but squaring off on one another,
I
correct?
don't remember them squaring off. Like I said, I just watched the video. I don't remember it from that night, and I didn't really pay attention. It looked like foolish, like guys just, I don't even know how to describe it.
From your perspective, having watched the video,
Mm-hmm.
it appeared that they squared off on each other and sort of took a fighting stance.
I didn't look at it that in depth, so I could not say that.
Did you see them walk up to each other and grapple with one another? Like they didn't notice punching each other.
Right.
I get that. Mm-hmm. Were they grappling with one another, like faking punches to each other?
I don't know.
Almost like sparring a little bit.
I don't honestly know.
But you did see the
I saw them together. It's blurry, and they're kind of, I don't know really what they're doing.
Okay, but they weren't standing there holding hands for
Oh, God, no. No.
They weren't on their phones, right?
they were engaging with each other, playfully grabbing at each other. I don't really.
Playfully grabbing at each other, play fighting, correct? That's my point.
I'd have to watch the video to categorize it as play fighting.
You don't have that in your head?
I didn't know. It was a quick clip. I wasn't like focusing on Brian and Brian. I was just identifying that was myself in the video, and there was Miss Reed, and I believe Miss Reed actually did some play fighting to Matt.
There was, in fact, to Matt.
Yeah, I feel like she went like this to Matt at one point. Yeah,
Okay.
in the video.
So let's talk about Brian and Brian Higgins and Brian Albert. Those two men, very large in stature, correct?
They're big guys. Yeah.
Big boys. A lot bigger than me, right?
Yeah.
They took a fighting stance with each other and started grappling, playing, coming toward each other as if they were engaging in a fake physical altercation, correct?
I did not see that. I'm sorry.
Okay. You didn't even see it on the video.
I saw them on the video grabbing at each other. I didn't see stances but again, I didn't pay much attention to it.
And that's your best memory as you sit here today?
Yes.
Okay. Eventually, your husband, Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, Nicole, Caitlin, everybody went over to 34 Fairview at the end of the night,
Yes.
correct? The bar closed at, I'm guessing, midnight.
Okay.
Is that right?
I think we were wrapping up around then. I don't know what time it actually closes.
When you left Waterfall, the people that were still there included Matt, your husband, and John O'Keefe. Is that right?
Yes.
You walked out with Karina Kolakithis and Karen Reed.
Yes.
And you said to Miss Reed something along the lines of, "You're coming with me," correct?
I said, why don't you come with me?
Okay, fair enough. You were prompting her to join you for the ride over to 34 Fairview. Is that right?
Yes.
You even went outside and sort of waited in the cold. There's a video. Have you seen the video of you outside, the surveillance video of you outside in the cold?
Yes.
And you're sort of waiting there, moving from foot to foot like it's freezing out, which I'm sure it was, correct?
Yes.
In a big puffy coat of some kind, right?
So the question was, I moving foot to foot in a coat? Yes.
My question is more, did you see yourself waiting outside in the cold?
I saw myself convert. I believe I was in a conversation at that point when I was standing out there with John and Karen.
And that's when you were asking Karen to come with you?
No, I had asked Karen previously when we were at the door to come with me because I didn't know how long Matt and John were going to be in the bar because they
Right.
were in there still.
And that would have, by definition, brought Karen to 34 Fairview separate and apart from John O'Keefe if Karen had come with you. Is that
Yes.
right? Miss Reed ultimately declined your invitation and did go with John. Is that right?
John ended up coming to the door, so they just went together, yes.
And finally, you walked away and went with your husband, Matt, over to 34 Fairview in your personal vehicle, correct?
Yes.
Elizabeth Proctor or Michael Proctor prior to September 2023, end quote.
I had never met Elizabeth
That's not the
Proctor
question.
prior. Well, there was a,
Did you tell Lieutenant Tully that quote?
if I can break that quote up because it's two thick parts.
No, you can't.
So
my
this has
question
been
is my
asked
question.
and answered. Move on, Mr. Jackson.
Do you deny, as you sit here, telling Lieutenant Tully that quote that I just read? Do you deny it?
Sustained. Move along. The question's been answered.
Let's talk for a second about your phone calls to John O'Keefe on January 29th, 2022. I'd like to go through those calls with you briefly, if I could. Your Honor, this has previously been marked Exhibit 26.
Okay.
Mr. Brennan has a copy, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you. Do you want this one?
That bad.
Thanks.
You've indicated on direct examination and earlier on cross-examination that you had multiple phone calls to Mr. O'Keefe in the early morning hours of January 29th, 2022, correct?
Correct.
Those phone calls
ranged from about 12:14 a.m. until about 12:50 a.m., correct?
There was a call at 12:14 and then at 12:18.
I'm sorry, I'm bracketing it. The calls
I
were between...
apologize.
That's okay. 12:14 all the way to about 12:50, correct?
Are you saying 15?
50, 50.
Oh, 50. Oh, sorry, I apologize. Yes.
You called John O'Keefe at 12:14 and 31 seconds, lasting about 49 seconds, and that call was answered, correct?
Yes.
And you see that reflected in Exhibit 26. Is that right?
Yes.
Going in reverse chronological order on this exhibit, you also see a call at 12:18 and 47 seconds, wherein John O'Keefe calls your phone, lasting about 36 seconds. Is that right?
Yes.
You know that call was answered, even though it says it says unknown in the document, correct?
It does say unknown, yes.
That 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth column over. That's where it says unknown.
Yes.
But it also indicates that call lasted 36 seconds, so you know it was answered.
I don't know from this record it was answered, but I know from my memory that I spoke to him a second time. Yes.
You also made a call, moving up to the page before this, starting at the bottom of the page, at 12:29 and 44 seconds. There was a call from you to John O'Keefe's phone lasting 7 seconds, correct?
That's what it says.
And the record indicates that it was an answered phone call, correct?
According to the record, it was answered, but I never spoke to him.
You deny speaking to John O'Keefe at 12:29 and 44 seconds.
Yes, I never spoke to him after 12:18.
Okay. Moving up, 12:41 and 10 seconds. There was a call from you to John O'Keefe's phone indicating that was missed. You see where it says missed?
I do.
12:41 and 59 seconds. There was another call from your phone to John's phone, and that was also indicated as missed. Correct?
Correct.
12:43, 19 seconds. You called John O'Keefe. That was a missed call.
Correct.
12:46 and 16 seconds. You called John O'Keefe's phone, and that was a missed call.
Correct.
12:47 and 52 seconds. You called John O'Keefe's phone, and that was a missed call.
I'm sorry, which one was that?
12:47 and 52 seconds.
Yes.
At 12:50 and 37 seconds, you called John O'Keefe's phone, and that was a missed call as well.
Yes.
Ms. McCabe, there's 7 calls. That you indicate you made to John O'Keefe's phone and that were missed. Is that right?
According to this record, yes, they were calls
that
missed.
comports with your memory, correct? You indicated that you had called him multiple times that morning and there were missed calls, right?
I called him, but I also think that some of the calls I might have done inadvertently.
Well, we're going to get to that in a second. My question is, that comports with your memory that there were several calls, according to the records, there were several calls made to John O'Keefe's phone, including 2 calls that you say you spoke to him, 12:14 and 12:18.
I spoke to him at 12:14 and 12:18, yes.
But you indicate every single call after that was missed, and you deny making those calls.
I'm not denying it, I just don't remember.
You've previously given explanation for what those calls were, these 7 calls that were missed between about 12:29 and about 12:50. That's 19 minutes. You'll agree, correct?
Yes.
If you divide 19 by 7, that's about every 2.5 minutes or 2.7 minutes, your phone is calling John O'Keefe's phone, correct?
Correct.
You've previously explained what you attribute to those phone calls. Is that right?
Yes.
What's your explanation?
I think I was going back and forth to the door I was texting him. I think I put my phone in my pocket. I think I inadvertently maybe have called him.
What did you call it at the last hearing?
I believe I called it a butt dial.
And it's not just one butt dial, correct?
There could be multiple, yes.
7 butt dials in the course of 19 minutes, less than 20 minutes, correct?
That evening, I wasn't paying attention to butt dials or calls. I was going back and forth, listening to music, being with family. So if I inadvertently called his phone, I did.
Not inadvertently called him once, 7 times, correct? According to you.
According to the record.
And we only know about these calls because you're looking at an extraction of John O'Keefe's phone, correct?
Correct, but I also turned over my phone, so you could have gotten all of that off of my phone as well.
And you're well aware that an extraction was done on your phone and not one of those butt dials appears on your phone extraction, correct?
Objection.
Are you aware of that?
I am not aware of that.
Next question.
Weren't you confronted with that at the last hearing a year ago? Whether or not those phone calls actually exist on your phone logs?
Objection.
Do you remember that?
I remember you asking previously, yes.
When you dial somebody by mistake, it requires several steps, doesn't it?
I'm not sure. A lot of times I just put my phone down, and the next thing I know, I think it's very common to do butt dials.
So you have an iPhone, is that right? Or had an iPhone.
I do, yes.
And that iPhone required a biometric or a passcode to get into to even open the phone. Mine's not open right now, right?
It's not open, correct?
And it requires, your phone required some sort of biometric interaction with the phone, otherwise known as Face ID. Or you put in a code, correct?
Yes, or I could have been texting, and then after I texted, the phone was open, and I could have accidentally called John. That happens to me all the time.
It also requires you to open the phone app, correct? For instance, if you're texting, you're in the text app. Is that right?
Actually, I'm not. I'd have to sit and look at it
Well, how often make phone calls? Okay.
every day. Every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
Hundreds of times a day, right?
Not hundreds.
Dozens of times a day.
Yeah.
You have to open the phone app to make a phone call. You can't call somebody from the texting app, right? Is that right?
I'm not sure. I don't know what to tell you.
There's a list of apps at the bottom of the phone.
Yes.
Messages, phone, right? Is that yes?
Yes, and maybe
And
I
that's
accidentally hit the
So-
last thing, the last call. Like, since I had talked to John,
Your Honor, at this point, I would ask the court to instruct the witness to answer my question.
I believe she is. Go ahead and finish.
Your Honor, we approach
Okay?
that, correct?
correct?
Then, once that phone app is open, then you have to choose the person to call, correct?
Yes, sometimes the last dialed.
Right.
Yeah.
And if that happens to be the last dial, scroll through, pick a person, make one tap, and that calls the person and initiates the call, correct?
That is one way, yes.
But if you get out of the app, I'm sorry, if you close your phone, hit the lock button after a text message, none of that can happen without you having to open the phone and engage the phone additionally, correct?
If you hit the button to lock it, yes.
Right. So you indicated that these are all missed calls. Is that right?
That's what the record show, yes.
In addition to a missed call, you've had missed calls before. You both received a missed call and you've made calls that were missed. Is that right?
Yes.
When you make a call that's missed, generally goes to voicemail, does it not?
It does, yes.
So then you have to do something additional with that call. Push the end button, correct?
Correct?
Otherwise, voicemails just go on forever. And actually, they go on for 4 minutes,
Okay.
right?
I don't know how long voicemails go for.
So if you had missed calls, 7 missed calls, that's at least 14 interactions, double it, because you got to make the call, then you got to end the call. 14 interactions with your phone for a single missed call.
One
I'm sorry,
missed
for
call.
7 missed calls.
It could be, yes.
And your testimony is you don't remember making a single one of those calls to John O'Keefe between 12:29 and 12:50, correct?
I do not remember making those calls, no.
As you sit here, do you deny making those calls between 12:29 and 12:50 to John O'Keefe?
Oh, I'm not denying that, no.
I'd like to ask you a few questions about January 29th, a little further on in the morning after you got home from 34 Fairview. Approximately what time did you get home?
I'm not sure, maybe around 11:30, 12, I'm not sure.
11:30 or 12?
It could be 11. Are you talking about, I'm confused, are you talking about,
Let me rephrase the question.
okay, sorry.
On the night of the early morning hours of January 29th, 2022, when you left Fairview,
Oh, I'm sorry,
what
okay.
time did you get home today?
It was after 2, I believe. I'm not positive.
You went upstairs, is that right?
Yes,
You began to engage with your phone at
yes.
that time. What application did you open up on your phone once you got upstairs?
It could have been Hockomock Sports.
I'm sorry, I'm backing up foundationally. What
Okay.
application on the phone? Was it Safari?
Oh, okay, yes. I think, yes.
You use Safari as your browser?
I'm not sure what I used.
You opened up a search engine as well within that browser, did you not?
I just know I Googled Hockomock Sports, I believe. I'm not sure what app I opened or how I went about it.
So Google is a search engine. You use
Okay.
Google.
Possibly. I mean, that's just an expression, but I'm not, if you could show my record, I'm not sure what app I opened
Well,
or
Ms.
what.
McCabe, you've seen this record many, many times about that search early in the morning hours, correct? You know that it was a Google search.
It was Google. Okay, it was a Google search.
Okay, so it was a Google search using the Safari app.
Okay.
You indicated that you were Google searching Hockomock Sports and something about Ozone?
Yes.
Ozone Sports or
It
Ozone
was
Basketball?
Yes.
What time was it that you did that Google search?
It was when I was home up in bed. I don't have an exact time.
About 2:27 a.m., correct?
I'd have to look at a record. I don't recall
You
off the top
certainly
of my
recall
head.
that time frame, don't you?
I know I was home and I Googled that, but I don't remember the exact time.
You do recognize 2:27 a.m.
I do recognize it, but it's not from me remembering it from that night specifically. It's from me learning afterwards.
And what you learned afterwards was there was a Google search at 2:27 a.m., right? I mean, that's a layup, to use a basketball term, right?
There's a record, I think, of one.
Right. The record is of a Google search at 2:27 a.m. on your phone. Is that right?
I'm not a phone expert, so I don't know. I can't read.
You're well aware. You don't have to be a phone expert to know that there was a Google search on your phone recovered at 2:27 in the morning. You know that. You've been told that. You've seen it. You've been asked about it dozens of times, haven't you?
I have been asked about it dozens of times, yes.
So let's set the foundation. There was a Google search on your phone at 2:27 a.m., correct?
Which Google search are you referring to?
It doesn't matter, Ms. McCabe.
Well, I know I did Ozone and I did Hockomock Sports.
And I didn't ask
And
you
those
that.
were the only two things that I Googled.
I didn't ask you what you Googled. I haven't gotten there yet. We're going to get there. I've asked you, was there a Google search at 2:27 a.m. on your phone?
If you want to show me a report,
Sure.
okay.
You don't remember, as you sit here, you don't remember that.
I don't.
You have no record, you have nothing in your mind about a Google search at 2:27 a.m. That's what you're testifying to in front of this jury right now.
Are you asking me if I made a Google search at 2:27?
Yes.
I don't know what time I was searching for Hockomock Sports and Ozone. I have no idea what time that was.
You're well aware that your records have been pulled, correct?
Yes, they have.
You've been confronted with those records many times, haven't you?
I've been asked by you, yes.
And by others, right?
Yes.
I mean, the police have asked you about it. You've been interviewed about it.
I've been asked by you.
And Mr. Lally?
Yeah, Mr. Lally asked about it, yes.
And every time you're asked, it's about a Google search at 2:27 a.m. That's all I'm asking.
It is, but it's not one that I remember doing or making or did. It's not one I did. It's just one that is in a record that was misread.
Are you denying that you made a Google search at 2:27 a.m.?
If you could show me this Google search, I'd appreciate it.
I have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Your Honor, I need a quick minute to find the record that I did not make a reaction. That's fine. Can we take a brief recess, about 5 minutes?
I'll see counsel at sidebar. Well, if Ms. Little wants to keep looking, we'll come to sidebar.
When you were looking around the area that was pointed out to you as where John O'Keefe was found, did you expand across the front lawn into the street during your search?
No, we didn't, with the exception of uncovering the 6-foot asphalt berm.
Did you say 6 foot or is it?
Excuse me, 6-inch.
What's a berm?
It's it's basically a curbing, but it's made of asphalt. It's curved. You probably have seen it. It's asphalt. It's curved. It separates the street from property line.
Why did you clear that piece?
Wanted to see. We're trying to find out why John was having a medical issue, and we didn't know if he could have tripped over a curbing or what turned out to be an asphalt berm and possibly hit his head.
After you made efforts to look in that area, did you return to the Canton Police Department?
I did.
About what time?
It was shortly after 8 a.m.
After you returned to the Canton Police Department, did you receive any information or have a reason to return back to Fairview?
Yes,
About what time?
a little after 9 o'clock.
Why did you go back to Fairview after 9 o'clock?
Sergeant Lank got a phone call that Jen McCabe had more information
And where did you understand Mrs. McCabe was?
at 34 Fairview.
Did you go back to 34 Fairview?
I did.
Did you go with anybody?
I went with Sergeant Lank
Did you travel together or separate?
together.
When you got back to 34 Fairview, outside, what did you do?
We parked in the driveway. We walked up, and next to the garage, there's a side door. I don't know if we rang the bell or not, but Brian Albert, the homeowner, answered the door.
As you walked up to the door, did you have a chance to look around at the doors in the area in front of that side door?
Yes.
Did you see anything out of place?
No.
You've been a police officer at that point for a long time.
Yes.
Do you receive any training in observing areas or people?
Always.
What type of training? What are you told to look for when you're speaking to people?
I've been BOSAR trained, which is behavioral observation, suspicious activity training, and you look for clues when you're speaking to people. Whether they cross their legs, cross their arms, there's certain behavioral characteristics.
At this point, did you have any understanding that this would later be a crime scene?
I did, yes.
What happened? How did you come to that conclusion?
Oh, not at that time.
Oh, not at that time?
No,
Okay.
not at that time.
When you went into the house, what part of the house did you go into?
I went into the room. It's adjacent to the kitchen, and I stood there with Brian Albert.
Can you describe what kind of room that would be?
Yeah, it was just a typical family room type room. It was not large. It was between the garage and the kitchen.
You met with Brian Albert?
Brian Albert answered the door and let us into the house.
Did you understand what his relationship was to that house?
He was the homeowner.
Did Sergeant Lank walk in with you?
He did.
Did he stay in that living area?
No, he went to the kitchen area and sat down with Jen McCabe.
Could you see the kitchen area from where you were?
I could see a portion of the kitchen area.
Did you see anybody else in the kitchen area with Mrs. McCabe and Sergeant Lank?
There were people in the kitchen area. There was nobody with Sergeant Lank or Miss McCabe.
Could you hear their conversation?
No,
Were you trying to listen?
no,
Were you speaking to Mr. Albert?
I was.
Did you take the time to make observations of him?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow it.
Did you take the time to make observations of him?
Yes,
Did you speak to him?
yes,
Did he speak to you?
yes.
Was there anything about his mannerisms or affect that caused you any concern?
No, it was just a social conversation. There was nothing of concern at all.
Was there anything about it that caused you to hone in or be concerned?
No,
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow that.
no.
Did you get a chance to look around that living area at the
Sure.
items?
I didn't look around, just with my eyes.
Did you get to see that area?
I did.
Did you see anything broken or looked out of place?
No, nothing.
Anything that caused you any type of concern?
Nothing.
When you looked towards the kitchen, did you see anything that looked different or suspicious in any way?
Nothing.
Was the interaction, did it cause you any alarm or concerns?
No.
After Sergeant Lank had an opportunity to speak to Mrs. McCabe and you spoke to Brian Albert, what did you do next?
We left.
Where did you go?
We went back to the police department and were informed that the state police were going to respond to the hospital and that we didn't need to respond to the hospital.
When you heard that the state police was then going to get involved in the investigation, what does Canton do when the state police takes over an investigation?
Well, it was based off of a conversation I had with my chief in the detective sergeant's office.
Was there a decision about Canton's involvement in the ongoing investigation?
There was.
What was that decision?
That we should recuse ourselves from any further investigative interviews.
And why was that?
Because our best detective, his name was Kevin Albert, and he was the brother of the homeowner, and I didn't want any potential bias, whether unconscious or subjective, to be perceived by the O'Keefe's, by the O'Keefe family.
So when the state police got involved and you had the conversation with the chief, was that the end of your efforts towards this?
It was the end of our efforts until, I helped facilitate during the search warrant on February 1st.
And so at some point, was the defendant's Lexus brought to the Canton Police Department?
It was.
Was it put in a particular area at the Canton Police Department?
It was.
What area?
The Sally Port.
What's a Sally Port?
Sally Port is where, when we have an arrest, we bring our prisoners in. It's basically a extra large garage. It has 4 doors. They're numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4. We typically go in door 4 and pull towards door 3. Door 4 is lowered, and then prisoners are walked into the booking area, which is also secure. The exterior doors to the Sally Port can only be opened by the dispatch council.
When crime scene services came to look at the car, was that the same day, the 29th, or later time?
No, it was February 1st.
Did the Lexus remain in the Sallyport area from the 29th until February 1st?
Yes.
When representatives from the crime lab from the Massachusetts State Police came on February 1st, who provided them access to the Lexus?
I was one of the people there that was there. I don't know if I provided them direct access, but I certainly would have. And I assisted them if they needed things. That's when the chain of custody, the exchange of custody for the blood samples and the glass occurred as well.
And during their processing of the Lexus, were you there for parts of it?
I was in and out, yes, but I did not partake.
Thank you very much.
Please. Mr. Jackson, is this video up there yours, or is it the Commonwealth's?
It's not mine. Or is it?
All right.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher, you have already established that you were at the scene on January 29th, early morning, January 29th, 2022. We've seen the video of the leaf blower, correct?
That is correct.
So you were integral to at least an initial search of the scene, which recovered the drinking glass that you've shown us, as well as some of the blood byproduct that you've talked about.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. You were the ranking person on the scene. You've already described that.
Yes, that is correct.
There were also several other officers from Canton PD who were there with you.
Yes, there was 4 other officers, yes.
Can you just name those other officers?
Yeah, Detective Sergeant Lank, Lank, Detective Sergeant Good, Goode, Officer Mullaney, Mullaney, and Officer Saraf, Saraf.
Okay. When you initially, let me back up and ask a different question. Given the fact that you were the ranking officer, the way that it works in a police department is everybody sort of reports up the chain of command, correct?
That is correct, yes.
So they would have all reported up to you in some particular.
That's correct.
And then, of course, you report to the deputy chief, and then the deputy chief reports on up to the chief, correct?
That is correct.
You were involved in not only the exposing of some of that blood byproduct, but also exposing the glass with the leaf blower, correct?
That is correct.
You were responsible for utilizing certain equipment. You chose a leaf blower at the time, correct?
I did, yes.
There was also, I'm guessing, there was also some use of your hands and or the gloved hands with some others to recover some of the items.
Yeah, I didn't use my hands. No.
How did you get the glass into a bag?
That was Detective Sergeant Lank.
Somebody had to pick it up, right?
Correct.
That's what I mean. The use of hands to manipulate some of the evidence, correct?
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't understand that question.
That's okay.
I thought you were speaking about me.
It's probably my fault, not yours.
Nope, that's okay.
There was also some plastic cups that we've talked about. We'll talk more about those in a second. Those were utilized as well, correct?
They were, yes.
And you were responsible for the use of those as well.
Yes, it was
So,
my decision, yes.
In terms of the search of the scene, the recovery of evidence, the recovery of biological material, the use of tools to recover those biological materials, all of that rested at least ultimately at the scene on your shoulders, correct?
Yes, it did.
Isn't it true that you weren't interviewed in this case with regard to anything having to do with this case until April 3rd, 2024, correct?
Yes, we can call it an interview. It's when I met with the prosecutor, yes.
And that was about 2.5 years, nearly 2.5 years after this incident, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Michael Proctor, you know that name.
I do.
Who is Michael Proctor?
He was one of the troopers assigned to investigate the case.
As a matter of fact, he was the lead investigator for the case, correct?
I don't know if he was lead or trooper mechanic. I don't know.
As you sit here, you don't know that Michael Proctor was the lead case agent for...
I know he was one of them, yes.
Okay. Do you know that he was the lead investigator assigned to the case?
I don't. I had nothing to do with the DA's office.
Right. I know you didn't have anything...
I don't know how they assign their cases, counsel. I don't know what you want me to say. I can't say what I don't know.
Mr. Gallagher, I'm not asking you to. I'm just asking if...
I did not know he was lead. I knew he was one of the leads.
Okay.
I believe they do it in a tandem, but I'm not sure.
Okay. He may have had a partner, correct?
That is correct, yes.
But it's not unusual to have a lead case agent, the person who's responsible for most of the search warrant writing and the memorialization of documentation of evidence collection and the movement of evidence and booking into evidence, things like that.
That is correct, but I don't know anything about who wrote their affidavits or who logged their evidence in. I wouldn't know that.
You're also familiar with Yuri Buchanan, correct?
I know who he is.
You're also familiar with Lieutenant Tully.
I know, yes.
They're all Massachusetts State Police officers, correct?
Yes, they all are.
Did
Yes.
Michael Proctor interview you before April of 2024?
He did not.
Did Yuri Buchanan interview you before April of 2024?
No, he did
Did
not.
Lieutenant Tully interview you before April of 2024?
No, he did not.
Did anybody else from the Canton Police Department, your deputy chief or the chief, interview you formally about your conduct and responsibilities before April of 2024?
I don't understand that question.
Did anybody at Canton PD, separating out Massachusetts State Police,
Correct.
did you sit down at Canton PD and provide an interview with anybody at Canton PD about your conduct at the scene?
What do you mean by conduct?
Going to the scene, collecting evidence, securing evidence, transporting evidence, booking evidence, those kinds of things. Your conduct at the scene, sir.
Yeah, I briefed my superiors, yes.
Okay, other than briefing, was there a formal report written
No,
or a formal interview conducted of you?
no, absolutely not.
Okay. Tell us when you wrote your report about what happened at the scene, memorializing what you did at the scene.
I didn't.
You didn't write a report?
About the scene that day at the scene?
Correct, about this
I
investigation.
only did the metadata report. I did not write a report at the scene.
You never, in fact, the fact is you never wrote any report about what happened at the scene, correct?
Correct.
You didn't memorialize that in any formal way on Canton PD letterhead to describe what you did and how you did it at the scene.
No.
Normally, when you report to a scene as a first responder, you would be expected to write a report about that, whatever that conduct is.
I'm not the supervisor, no.
What if you're the ranking person at a scene that ultimately turns into a homicide scene?
Well, we don't know it's a homicide scene at this time. We don't even know there's a crime committed at this time. My
Understood.
responsibilities are to make sure reports are written, not to necessarily write the reports myself. I'm the supervisor. It's
Although-
my job to make sure reports are written, evidence is logged, those types of things.
Under ordinary circumstances, you would respond to a scene as a supervisor, and you would oversee what other people are doing, what your
That's
subordinate-
correct.
Can I finish?
Sure.
I don't want to talk over each other.
I apologize.
You would want to supervise or oversee what your subordinate officers, whatever he or she might be doing or they might be doing, you're going to oversee that. But they're the ones actually conducting the investigation or picking up evidence or doing the interviews and writing those things of that nature.
Correct. Detective Sergeant Lake's investigation, yes.
So in that circumstance, you wouldn't be expected to write a report because all of that conduct is memorialized by others subordinate to the supervisor, correct?
Correct.
But in this case, quite the opposite happened. You were the one that was in the video utilizing the leaf blower, correct?
That's correct.
You were the one that actually exposed the drinking glass, correct?
Correct, yes.
You noted the drinking glass and actually called somebody else over to take a look at it, correct?
That's correct.
You directed someone, Sergeant Lake, to pick up the drinking glass and recover it as a potential piece of evidence, correct?
That is correct.
You noted the blood or the coagulation of blood in and around that area, correct?
That is correct.
You noted where you believe the drinking glass was, in other words, what location, if there were grid coordinates, where it would be, correct?
Correct.
And you instructed others to transport that important evidence back to Canton PD to have it booked, correct?
That is correct.
You also secured the plastic containers in which to recover the blood.
That is
right?
correct.
You also directed someone to get a bag to put the plastic containers in and ultimately transport it, correct?
That is correct.
So you would agree with me, Mr. Gallagher, that in this circumstance, you were the centerpiece of the recovery of evidence and the investigation as it was at that time in that limited context. You were the centerpiece of what was happening at the scene, correct?
And I made sure it was documented by Detective Sergeant Lake.
But you didn't find it important enough to write a report yourself.
I think that's poor misrepresentation. There's a person fighting for their life. It was very important.
When you were there at the scene at, what time was it, by the way?
I got there shortly after 7.
Okay, you knew that that person who was fighting for his life had already been transported and was in good care, as best care we can provide at Good Samaritan Hospital, correct?
That is correct.
So certainly you're not excusing away the idea that you didn't memorialize your conduct because you were too busy fighting for someone's life. That's not what you're saying.
No, it definitely is not what I'm
Okay.
saying.
Obviously, reporting to a scene and supervising a scene is one thing, but actually gathering evidence is a whole next level. You would agree with that?
Sure.
Because, just to put a fine point on it, responding to a scene as a supervisor, you want to make sure everybody's doing their duty,
But the officer or officers who, for instance, uncover, let's say it's a knife or a gun or some weapon or something like that, actually documenting and picking up that evidence and handling it up in an appropriate way, that is all highly, highly technical. It's very important to get it right and memorialize it all, correct?
That is correct.
That's why you're highly trained to memorialize and report everything that you do in that regard in a report that can later be used forensically, in other words, in a courtroom setting, to recreate as best you can with as much detail as you can exactly what you did and how you did it and where it was done, correct?
Sure, yes.
Officer Lank wrote a report in this case.
Sure.
Did Officer Mullaney?
I believe you did, yes.
Did Officer Seraph?
Yes.
Officer Good? Sergeant
Yes.
Good?
Yes,
But you did not.
I did not.
Who was the first officer to find any potential physical evidence at the scene, be it blood or glass?
I can't answer that. It was not me. I was not the first thing that was spotted was the pink spotting, not the glass.
Okay. Who was the first person to see the glass?
I think it was myself as I uncovered it with the leaf blower.
One of the important things that we've talked about, Mr. Gallagher, is documenting the details of evidence recovery, not just the fact that something was recovered, correct?
That's correct.
So you'd want to know what time of day it was recovered, correct?
Sure.
You'd want to know who was there and who was around when it was recovered, correct?
Yes.
You'd want to know what the item is, the condition of the item, right?
Yes.
You'd also want to know exactly where it's recovered, correct?
Yes.
In other words, as best you can to pinpoint the exact location where an item was found. That
Yes.
could play a huge role in any investigation, be it criminal or otherwise.
It could. It could.
Did you diagram or draw a diagram back at Canton PD or
I did
out
not.
at the scene
No.
about where that glass was found?
No, I did no reports or diagrams.
Did you diagram exactly where you recovered the blood spots that you did recover?
No.
Did you at least, if you didn't write a report, did you at least take notes on a pad about what you were doing?
Yeah, conditions weren't, it was pretty hard to take notes at that time, but I did not take notes, no.
At some point, you mentioned a person by the name of Tom Kelleher, Deputy Chief Kelleher.
That's correct.
Who is Deputy Chief Kelleher?
He's the deputy chief of Canton Police.
He was on active duty at the time? When I say active duty, I don't mean that morning, that hour. I mean just generally.
Yes. He was a lieutenant at that time.
He was someone to whom, as a matter of fact, probably the only person to whom at Canton PD you actually reported, correct? Up the chain of command. He was the only person to whom you reported up the chain of command, meaning he was your direct report.
He was in charge of detectives at that time.
And then, of course, the chief would be above him, correct?
Deputy chief and chief.
Okay. When you responded to the scene, Deputy Chief Kelleher did not come out of his house and take over the investigation, correct?
Correct.
That was yours to detail,
That is correct.
at least while you were there.
That is correct.
So can you describe what you did to preserve the crime scene? I'm sorry, to preserve the scene, because at that time you said you did not know if it was a crime scene. Is that right?
That's correct.
What did you do
I
in
mean,
terms of actually preserving the scene for later investigation? What steps did you take?
For later, can you explain later investigation?
So let me take a step back.
Sure.
Have you been trained to preserve scenes?
Yes.
Okay. What's the reason that you want to preserve a scene? What does that mean?
Collect evidence.
Collect evidence and make sure nothing is disturbed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Civilians can't kind of traipse through or walk through evidence, correct?
That's correct.
You've heard the phrase forensically evidence in, evidence out. Someone traipses through a crime scene, you bring
Correct.
evidence with you, and you take it back out with you on your shoes or on your feet or your breath or your saliva, whatever it might be.
Very familiar with that, yes.
Preserving the scene is best efforts, is best practices to make sure that nothing is moved, touched, messed with in any way, correct?
That's correct, and that's what was done here.
What did you do? That's my question. What did you do to preserve that scene?
There were no civilians ever to trample through. Were rescue efforts made on Mr. O'Keefe? Yes, that's priority. So rescue workers do go into any type of scene. Medical life-saving measures come first. Once all apparatus was off scene, the original officers put out crime scene tape to mark an area. And later, it was documented, it was photographed, and evidence was collected.
And it was searched by you, at least initially with the leaf blower.
Correct.
Okay. So you were interested in the area that, by the way, I want to clear this up, make sure I'm not mistaken. You described for Mr. Brennan basically where Mr. O'Keefe's body was, correct?
Yes, yes,
You never saw his body in situ. You never saw his body in place.
that is correct.
You were told by Sergeant Lank generally where his body was, correct?
Yes, and Sergeant Lank actually never saw Mr. O'Keefe either.
That's my next question.
Okay,
Sergeant Lank-
and Mr. Good, and Sergeant Good as well.
Right. Sergeant Lank never saw John O'Keefe actually in place, correct?
That is correct.
So you're receiving information from Sergeant Lank that he did not have personal knowledge of, and then you're providing that information later to crime scene investigators who are trying to establish a diagram or some sort of a chart about where that evidence was, where the drinking glass was, where his body was, correct?
No, I never spoke to anybody in that manner about that.
Didn't you ultimately go out to the scene along with others at Massachusetts State Police when they had a drone overhead?
No, you're mistaken. I can clarify it for you if you wish.
Sure.
So on February 1st, after the execution of the warrant, they wanted to go down to the scene. It was Trooper Proctor and somebody from the CARS team. I'm not sure of the name. Once they got down there, I did show them where I was shown John O'Keefe was. They did want to put up a drone, but they could not do it because they were too close to Norwood Airport and because of FAA regulations.
Okay.
And that was the last of my involvement with that. I hope that clarifies things for you.
Forget the drone. I'm interested in the first part, which was you accompanied Trooper Proctor to the
Correct.
scene, correct?
Correct.
There were other members of CARS, C-A-R-S.
I think there was one. Crash accident reconstruction section, I'm assuming.
Okay, so it's a forensic, a member of MSP who does forensic diagrams, correct?
I would say. I don't know if they do diagrams. I don't know what they do.
Or reconstruction of some sort.
Sure, reconstruction of some sort.
So you were there to help provide information about where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found, correct?
And be a Canton police officer present in case any neighbors had come out.
So you were there to help provide information about, or at least you did provide information to them about where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found.
Oh, sure, yes.
Except you didn't see Mr. O'Keefe's body, did you?
No, I did not.
So that was a guess on your part.
It was what I was shown. It's the information I had.
Yeah, it was the information you were told by Sergeant Lang, correct?
Yes,
Who also didn't see John O'Keefe in place on the ground at 34 Ferry, correct?
that is correct, yes.
So his would be a guess also, correct?
Well, we're going backwards, so he was told by Sergeant Good and et cetera. So it was information passed along, which is what police officers do.
Right. But the police officer that was out there at the scene, who was helping the reconstructionist establish the formal report, and the CARS report was an officer who not only didn't see where John O'Keefe's body was, you got information about where John's body was from someone who didn't see it either. Correct? Can we at least agree
no.
on that?
You have to go back to the beginning. I didn't understand the beginning of that question.
Sure,
It was very
I'll try it
long.
again. The point is, Mr. Gallagher, you happen to be tapped as the person who is going to assist the CARS folks, the MSP, in creating their CARS,
No.
ultimately their CARS report.
No.
Isn't it true that you accompanied Trooper Proctor and members of the CARS unit to document Fairview Road and the scene of the incident?
Yeah, I thought I explained it could not be done.
Okay.
So
I'm not
I
asking
wasn't,
you-
I only went to show them where Mr. O'Keefe was and in case any neighbors came out. I wasn't there to assist in any documentation at all.
You were there. You know who Brian Tully is.
I do.
Have you reviewed Brian Tully's report?
I have not. You showed me one section of it.
Is it true that what you actually told Brian Tully is that you went with Trooper Proctor, and you're already shaking your head now. I haven't even finished the question.
No.
I got that part wrong? You accompanied Trooper Proctor?
No, what's wrong is I was interviewed by Lieutenant Tully. That was a meeting I had
Okay.
with Prosecutor Lally.
Okay.
Trooper Tully was present. Trooper Tully never asked me any question. I don't recall Trooper
I
Tully
see.
ever asking me a question, sir.
So let me be a little bit more defined. So in Trooper Tully's report, where he reports what you said, you were actually talking to Adam Lally, my colleague sitting up in front.
Correct.
Okay. So now we've got that cleared up. Let me ask you again. Did you say in front of Trooper Tully that you accompanied Trooper Proctor and members of the CARS unit to document Fairview Road?
Meaning they were documenting Fairview Road. It's not clear. The report's not clear. They were going to document Fairview Road, not me.
So you just said something that I want to follow up on.
Okay,
The report's not clear, correct?
that's correct.
So that's an inaccurate report.
I wouldn't call it inaccurate at all. I'm just saying you're misinterpreting the wording.
I see. And I'm misinterpreting it even though I just read it directly from the report?
Yeah, sometimes sentences have different meanings. Yes, you are.
Okay. The reality.
All right, so Mr. Lessie, I'll hear you. I'll hear you, Mr. Lessie.
Thank you, Your Honor. The topic I would like to raise with Your Honor is the timing and nature and significance of the information that the defense has received from the firm Aperture. And Your Honor may recall there are two individuals on the witness list that we understand are to testify in this matter. First is Dr. Judson Welcher, and the second is Shannon Burgess.
And are they testifying in reverse order, though, than what you said?
My understanding is, Your Honor, yes, that
Okay.
my understanding, Mr. Brennan has the best information, is that it's proposed that Mr. Burgess testifies first and Dr. Welcher testifies thereafter.
Okay.
So the Commonwealth has established in reports right up until not established, they had stated in the reports of Aperture, particularly the slide presentation of Dr. Welcher, a trigger called 1162.2 that they have associated in the report of Dr. Welcher with a specific time. And that specific time that they have associated with that trigger is 12/31/38 to 12/31/43. And we have been assuming that information, and this is from best memory, but I believe it's slide 137 or so, where this statement is in the slide. And so we have proceeded with our defense. We have proceeded with the work that has been assigned to ARCA based upon that time period. On May 8th, not too long ago, Your Honor, we received an amended report of Shannon Burgess that pushes that time period. I'm just going to get it. So, although it was dated May 8th, we received it actually on May 11th. And in that report, Mr. Burgess states that he is making an amendment, and he is now stating that that infotainment trigger of 1162.2 is further back in time, and it is past 12:31:43.
Do you have the time?
I'm going to get the exact time, Your Honor. It is 12:32:16. And Your Honor may recall that the seconds, literally seconds, matter in the analysis of many factors. I won't go into them other than to say I went through and developed testimony with regard to the cross-examination of Mr. Whiffen. He had a timeline. He talked about much human volitional conduct. Suffice it to say that that information is literally, by seconds, determinative in some ways of various analyses. So we basically commissioned, if you will, ARCA to be looking at matters based upon the infotainment trigger 1162.2 of 12/31/38 to 12/31/43. As of May 11th, we received information that has changed that. Now, Your Honor, that is a Rule 14 violation, among other issues, but I wanted to start there. It's a Rule 14 violation. It's obviously, as I stated, an amendment of a report of a significant matter. And also, with regard to the defense's ability to provide a defense, we have to be able to evaluate that information in terms of our entire defense. And it's just not limited to ARCA. It's our entire defense. The other data point I want to get to, so the effect it's had, we still haven't even been able to evaluate entirely that. And I believe, Your Honor, based upon the information that I have, that this may have been a calculated matter by the Commonwealth, but even assuming it's not calculated, the effect is pronounced. So what I want to do, Your Honor, is to look at what the reason Mr. Burgess has given, which leads me to be very concerned about a calculation and a strategy calculation here. Mr. Burgess states in his own words that the reason why he is changed, that time is being changed, is to, quote, align the trigger with Mr. Whiffen's analysis. And Mr. Whiffen's analysis is based upon the extraction data from Mr. O'Keefe's phone. And I believe it's undisputed that the extraction from Mr. O'Keefe's phone occurred years ago. And the data from that has been extant, it's been available years ago. So to me, Your Honor, that basis can't be a proper basis at particularly this stage where we are approaching the end of the trial, just literally days before the testimony of Aperture, and we are in a very, very almost impossible, challenging situation. So, Your Honor, there are obviously, Your Honor knows the situation here. Our first request is that the May 8th report that we received on May 11th be not allowed, that it be not considered at all. As Your Honor knows, I don't like to use hyperbolic words, but the word has been used for us, against us, ambush, ambush, ambush. If there's ever an example of an ambush, this is it. And so, Your Honor, our request is that Your Honor find a Rule 14 violation, that Your Honor have the remedy be that the violation, remedy be that this is not allowed, and that the Commonwealth proceed with its the information of Aperture that has been extant before the May 8th date of the report. Thank you.
All right. Do you have another option if that's not something that we do, right? Because the Commonwealth moved to exclude ACCA or have them go by their old report, right?
Right. And Your Honor, I'm going to answer your question, but with just the quick point that this is really much different than ARCA because two reasons. We are the defense, and ARCA is a rebuttal to the prosecution's case. That is much different than a prosecution changing its theory of the case at this time.
I understand that. I'm just asking if you
Right.
have
So-
another
so
option.
It's not what I am saying that I am proffering. I think the only remedy here is exclusion and a Rule 14 violation.
And you're not waiving that?
I'm not waiving that.
No, I'm not asking you to.
Your Honor.
Okay, a continuance for how long?
I could have a better answer perhaps to that question tomorrow. I haven't, given what's been going on, I haven't even had a
Right.
chance to talk to ARCA at
All right,
all.
so tomorrow morning, let me know that. All right,
In Your Honor, I will do that, of course. And I will also say, without getting into an elaboration of it, we have to look at all the witnesses that we called. I'll give you an example. Mr. Whiffen. I had my whole cross-examination, not whole, but a significant part of my cross-examination of Mr. Whiffen based upon going through human volitional conduct off that phone that was after that 1162 trigger. And a lot of our defense in theory is based upon that's been in existence now for several months. And again, I go to the bottom line that the proffered reason in Mr. Burgess's report is to align with the data on Mr. O'Keefe's phone, and then that's been around for a long time. So that's my answer to Your Honor's question.
all right, thank you. Mr. Brennan.
Your Honor, this disclosure is not a Rule 14 violation. The Commonwealth, just like the defense is entitled, continues to work on their case and study their case as time goes on. This issue, the relevance of this issue, has been clear throughout the case, including my opening statement. And the issue is that clocks are different. There is a clock in a Lexus that runs on a different time than that of an iPhone. And if you recall in my opening statement, I talked about the fact that there are variances between those clocks. So instead of a moment that coincides happening at the precise second, sometimes there's a variance of time between the two. So the Lexus clock could be at a variance with an iPhone, but the event still could happen at the same time, given the clocks have different times. The defense provided a report by a person by the name of Mr. DeSorga, a noted expert witness who they've listed as a witness they may potentially call. Mr. DeSorga wrote a report, and in the report he suggested, based on his analysis, that Mr. O'Keefe's phone always ran late. That means if the texting data, the black box data from the car, has an event at 12:32:38, 12:31:38, and Mr. O'Keefe's last movements were 12:32:16, last user interaction 12:32:09, there is a variance between those times. We asked our expert to review their expert's report to see if he was accurate, that the variance means that these times would never align. And that's what he did. He studied the data, he studied the waves, he studied the Lexus black box relative to the time. Doesn't change anything, doesn't change the data whatsoever, just adds to the time. What he learned, from his opinion, is that Mr. DeSorga was wrong. He used information from different phones, not recognizing the items that these timelines came from, and that his time estimates are wrong. So then he looked at the time of the event of the ignition, on and off, and he compared that to the Waze data. And when he did, he found that he could identify what the actual differential was. Instead of guessing that it was within the 30-second window, it was somewhere around 21 to 25 seconds. And that 7 minutes before the collision, Mr. O'Keefe's phone was 21 to 29 seconds ahead, which means you subtract that time, which puts it in the same variance that we've been arguing from the beginning, that the collision occurred at the same moments when Mr. O'Keefe last had user interaction, and that reconciles with the data. It does not change the text screen data or the black box information on the car whatsoever. It does not change ARCA's analysis whatsoever. We received this report on May 8th. I was surprised to receive it. I welcomed it. We turned it over on May 8th. There was no delay. It's been a week now the defense has had this information. And so this is not an attempt to align anything. While it may reconcile or identify that variance more closely, it doesn't change any data whatsoever. And so this is not a Rule 14 violation. The effort was in response to disclosures that we believe were wrong by the defense expert, and it is clarified and it is favorable for us. And so we should be able to use it.
Did you intend to use it in your case in chief, or only if this witness disorder? I don't remember reading that name, so I don't know how to pronounce it.
On my case in chief, because we now have this available data. As I said, this wasn't ambush, isn't something that we sat on. It was in response. Fortunately, we received their expert report, which caused us to focus more closely. And now that we've identified that variance, rather than having an open variance of 30 seconds, we should not be precluded from favorable information that has been provoked by a report by the defense.
Okay. Yes.
I'll do it quickly.
Okay.
Attorney Brennan has provided a lot of information, and he has accurately provided information, but he's got the time completely wrong and the significance respectfully completely wrong. I'm going to hit his 4 categories quickly. He said, he referenced Mr. DeSorbo, who is a defense witness. Two points about Mr. DeSorbo. First, Mr. DeSorbo provided his expert report within this reciprocal discovery deadline.
Okay.
And he provided that report months ago.
Okay.
So as I heard Attorney Brennan, he's saying the reason why we're getting something on May 8th is because Mr. Burgess supposedly is responding to that. That was months ago.
Okay.
The more apt point is, or an even more apt point is, Mr. DeSorbo was responding to the information of Aperture. It wasn't like Mr. DeSorbo was coming up. He was rebutting as defendants do. So, and it's Mr. DeSogra, D-I-S-O-G-R-A. Again, D-I-S-O-G-R-A. So that's an important point with regard to Mr. DeSogra. Now I want to go to Attorney Brennan's comment about clocks are different. I agree with Attorney Brennan on that. The shortcoming for Attorney Brennan's argument, however, is that the clocks are different concept has been in existence in this case for over 6 months. I can give you by memory Mr. Whiffin's report of December of 2024, where his report went into the different clocks and what their significance was. So that is almost 6 months ago, at least 5 months ago, the issue of different clocks has been in existence in this case. So therefore, the issue of different clocks dates back to then. But even more fatal for the Commonwealth's argument is that Mr. Burgess himself issued his report and talked about the difference in clocks. He already knew it. He already had it.
Did he testify to that last time? Did he testify?
Aperture was not part of the first trial.
All right, I thought Burgess was, no?
No, neither.
Okay.
No one from Aperture was.
I knew
Your Honor.
Aperture was, and I thought he may have been something. The name just sounded
Neither
familiar.
Burgess nor Welcher were part
Okay.
of the first trial. But they were retained. Aperture was retained, I believe, in October of 2024.
Okay.
And at best for the Commonwealth, Aperture had, and Mr. Burgess and Dr. Welcher had Mr. Whiffin's report that talked about the clock differences. So the clock differences cannot be, as the Commonwealth is proffering, some sort of new information that caused Aperture to provide a new report. This variance that Attorney Brennan talked about, it's called the clock drift. A more layperson's term is a variance of time. Mr. Burgess, in his original report months ago, has a whole section on clock drift. That's not a new concept for him. He's just changing the drift.
Okay, so what I'd like to do, because I want to address the other issue and I don't want to keep people here too long, can you wrap it up, Mr. Alessi, or is that?
In 60 seconds.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the last point I wanted to make, and I think I heard Attorney Brennan correctly, is he said he was surprised that he got this report dated May 8th. That's what I heard. So if the Commonwealth is surprised that they got it, that should mean, to me, Your Honor, be an outstanding, fetching reason to not allow it, because they're surprised to get it. And I can lastly say this, Your Honor, there's nobody that's more surprised to getting this than the defendant when we got it on May 11th.
Okay, thank you. The other issue about calling your expert on rebuttal, Mr. Brennan, based on the late disclosure of the ARCA materials. What's your argument on that?
I won't iterate the entire past, but Your Honor has found discovery violations. Your Honor has found that I want to phrase this properly, the efforts of the defense were improper. And inevitably, we've now received an extraordinary amount of discovery on the most important issue in this case, well beyond the discovery deadlines, without any excuse. And the court, understandably, has overruled government's objection and has stated that it's going to allow the defense to proffer two expert witnesses in a very complicated field, in an issue that is the heart of this case. If you're going to allow them to testify, despite the fact that we have not had adequate time to review, and to prepare, and to address it. The Commonwealth has the burden of proof. The Commonwealth has an obligation to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. And this isn't simply late disclosure of some evidence. This is a massive amount of evidence of the most critical issue. And so we provided this information to Dr. Wexler. As you know, he was away. We did not get a report until maybe May 7th. We did not have a chance to look at it until May 9th. An extraordinary amount of work, effort, and expense has gone into preparing our case for the jury. He is still in the process of reviewing the materials. There are entirely new subject areas within this information, well beyond the simple 4 opinions that they gave at the beginning. There are studies, there are demonstrations, there are experiments. This requires not only review, but an analysis, testing, vetting, and then preparing testimony to address the claims made by the defense experts. Not to get into a battle of disparagement, but...
Good afternoon, Dr. LaPosada.
6 minutes till the afternoon. Good afternoon.
That's okay. You wrote a report in this case, Doctor?
Yes, I did.
Do you think that based on your analysis, was Mr. O'Keefe thrust backwards? Is that what you determined looking at his head injury?
That he was, I didn't understand, you had your hand in front of your
Sure,
mouth.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You talked about a head injury that Mr. O'Keefe had, that
Yes.
he suffered from,
Yes,
that caused his death.
yes.
Was that caused by being thrust backwards?
Yeah, the motion was upwards, down.
Okay. And the way you just showed it could be a fall.
Correct.
Did you have an opinion looking at his wound that he was thrust backwards?
What do you mean thrust?
Well-
His body went backwards. There may have been some applied force to it.
I don't know about thrust. I'm asking if you have an opinion. Your words. Do you have an opinion about thrust?
What do you mean thrust?
Did the forensic pathology diagnosis mean Mr. O'Keefe's body was thrust backward?
If you want to say thrust as indicating movement, that it went backwards, then you could say it was thrust.
Okay, may I approach?
Yes.
I'm showing you page 2 of your report, Dr. LaPosada.
Yes.
I'm just going to ask you to read it, not out loud, and then I can ask you the question after we take it. But I want to
Yes.
take a look.
Yes.
Are you familiar with that?
No, absolutely.
So, Dr. LaPosada, what did you mean when you described that Mr. O'Keefe's body was thrust backward from a standing position?
I mean that he was standing upright and his body had momentum and went down and hit at the back of his head. So it was thrust backwards.
You cannot tell forensically how much momentum he had, can you?
No, we don't do those analyses.
And you can't tell if anything caused that momentum based on the head injury, can you?
What do you mean causative? It was caused by his body went backwards.
Yes. And so the amount of force causing him to go backwards, that's not something you can determine from the head wound, is it?
No, I can't tell you the amount of force. It was significant because he had the massive skull fractures.
Did you say it would be significant?
Yes, significant force.
In modern medicine, there are a number of different machines that can help us see the brain, like a CAT scan, perhaps,
Sure.
MRIs.
Yes.
Would you agree with modern medicine that the use of MRIs and CAT scans and other tools give a clinician equal, if not better, opportunity to examine the brain as actually cutting it and holding it in your hand?
No, the actual gold standard is the pathology, to be able to have the brain in your hand, look at it with your naked eye. And we have conferences in the hospital where we meet with radiologists and say what we find at autopsy and see if their radiology was correct.
Can CAT scans and MRIs show contusions on the brain?
Well, they might.
Subdermal hemorrhages?
Subdural hemorrhages. Yes, they can.
Herniations?
They can.
Do you have any doubt about the modern medicine and the use of MRIs and CAT scans? Do you think they're inadequate in any way?
Well, I'm not a clinician, so I don't use those to diagnose diseases in living patients.
Dr. LaPosada, have you ever had any experience studying the brain in real time, clinically, going and opening somebody's skull and treating the injury before the person dies?
No, I'm not a neurosurgeon.
You don't have any neurological expertise, do you?
I'm not a neurologist. I'm not a neurosurgeon. I'm a forensic pathologist.
Do you have any clinical experience at all where there's an acute head injury and you're making an effort to observe it and analyze the injury as it progresses in an attempt to save the person's life?
I don't treat or diagnose living patients.
I understand, but as far as your background, have you ever had any experience, clinical experience, showing the progress of an actual brain injury and trying to treat it?
I understand the physiology of what happens to the brain when it is impacted by something, whether it be a bullet, a boulder, a fall. So I know what happens to the body to cause the changes from that trauma. I don't treat people for those injuries.
In observing a brain that's in trauma and making determinations of how long it's viable or whether the person will expire, Do you know the process that a neurosurgeon would go through in order to fight to preserve the person or save the person? Do you know the step-by-step process that they would undertake?
To do what?
To try to operate or save somebody from a head injury, from a brain injury.
I'm going to allow it because of prior testimony.
Well, it depends on what the brain injury is. If you have head injury and you have bleeding on the brain that's pushing the brain one way or the other, it would be a subdural. Then a neurosurgeon would come in and try to take that blood away so it doesn't compress the brain. So that's something that neurosurgeons do to treat head trauma. They can also put in drains into the ventricle of the brain, and that can relieve pressure in the brain because that brain swelling is a bad thing. So those are some of the things neurosurgeons do to treat brain injuries.
And can they remove part of the skull to relieve pressure?
Oh, yes, they can do that. It's called a craniotomy. They can take out part of the skull if they need to.
So there are a number of different steps that a neurosurgeon can take when someone suffers acute brain trauma to try to save the person, isn't there?
Well, the job of any doctor is to try to save a human life if you treat living patients. So certainly a neurosurgeon would evaluate the patient and decide if there's any treatment needed that could improve the patient.
When you've had cases in the past as a medical examiner where there have been issues regarding brain injury, wouldn't you agree that you have sought outside consultation with people who have a higher degree of specialty in brain injury than you?
Sometimes what we do is when we're examining the brain, we can call in for a conference and have a neuropathologist come in and review the brain with us.
And back when you were a medical examiner, you did that on a number of occasions, didn't you?
Yes, that's routine.
The reason why is because there are different specialties in medicine, and some are different and separate than your specialty, correct?
Of course.
And a neurosurgeon or a brain surgeon, it would be a different specialty than yours.
Yes.
And they're focused on the brain, yes?
A neurosurgeon does brain surgery.
And so, how many times in your career do you think that you've assisted the help of neurosurgeons to take a look at brain study to help you?
I've never needed to speak with a neurosurgeon to look at a brain. Sometimes we call in neuropathologists and we have a forensic neuropathology conference where we look at brains with the interns and residents.
How often would you call a neuropathologist?
Maybe once a month we would have a routine conference.
And again, the neuropathologist, that's dealing with a person's brain after they're already died.
Correct.
So it's not a clinical setting or a clinical experience of actually watching the brain at work and seeing the injury as it progresses.
We don't do neuropathology like that on living people. The person is deceased.
You had an opinion to the jury today, and you said that you believe that Mr. O'Keefe died within 15 minutes?
Yes, I think that process would start within 15 or 20 minutes.
Is that to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, that opinion?
Yes, based on the severity of the injury and the brain swelling.
You're aware that there are numerous level 1 trauma centers around the country that deal with brain injury, right?
Sure.
And the idea is that people suffer all types of brain injury, and if they are given medical attention in a reasonable amount of time, there's a chance they can be saved, yes?
It's possible, but many are so severe that they cause death no matter how fast they can get medical attention.
In fact, every day when people get the right attention or proper attention, they're brought to level 1 trauma centers around this country to try to help them or save them. Isn't that fair to say?
I would hope so.
Do you think?
Sure.
When you looked at Mr. O'Keefe's brain, obviously it's after he already expired, correct?
Obviously,
And
yes.
so you didn't have any clinical observation of the progress of his injury that night, did you?
I was not observing him. I did not observe how he got his injury.
When you gave an estimate or you give an opinion about how long he was alive for, are you aware that there's certain tests that are done by neurosurgeons when people are suffering brain injuries but there's an attempt to save them?
Sure.
Have you ever heard of a Guzman coma score?
Glasgow, you mean?
You know, but there's Glasgow, but you've heard of Guzman?
It's called Glasgow coma score.
Have you ever seen the assessment that a level 1 trauma center goes through when they're trying to save somebody with a brain injury?
I'm generally familiar with the emergency procedures to save somebody's life.
Have you ever read any statistical studies attempting to correlate the brain injury with the time somebody would live for?
I am aware of that, and I see that in my practice of people who have survived brain injuries and die of something else. Then I can look at the brain and understand how the brain can heal or react to injuries.
And many people who suffer coup contre coup will go into a brain surgeon center, and many of them pass after time, don't they?
Now, every case is different.
Right. Some might live for an hour, hours, weeks, months, or survive the injury. Isn't that fair to say?
It depends on the case.
In this case, you don't have any objective criteria to identify the amount of time Mr. O'Keefe would have lived if he had the appropriate help. Isn't that fair to say?
I don't think it would have been effective because there were massive skull fractures to the base of the skull, and there are cases where the amount of force and energy applied to the head, causing skull fractures, breaking the neurons, causing the brain swelling, despite rapid medical treatment, those people cannot be saved. They can't effectively stop the brain swelling.
Many people can't be saved. Did you know that about 1/3 of them do get saved?
I don't know what you're talking about. 1/3 of everybody has different sorts of injuries. 1/3 of what?
With a clivus fracture, coup contre coup. Are you aware that 1/3 of those patients survive if they get the proper treatment?
It depends on the amount of force.
Okay. Are you aware that a study would show, have you ever read a study by Isaac Wolf on clivus fractures?
No.
Have you read any studies on clivus fractures?
Clivus fractures? Yes, I understand what clivus fractures are. It's a part of the base of the skull.
Okay.
And
And
it
have
depen-
you-
Oops. Okay, go ahead.
Please. Did you want to
No,
say?
you go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Have you read any studies that tell you with the proper treatment, despite these potentially catastrophic injuries, that 1/3 of patients can survive?
No, but that's not the case we have here.
And so in this case, I asked if you had any objective criteria. You don't have any objective criteria about the progress of Mr. O'Keefe's wound that can be a basis for you to conclude that he would have died in 15 minutes. Isn't that fair to say?
No, I understand what happens to the brain when it gets that sort of injury. I understand the time course and the physiology. I've seen hundreds of individuals who've had brain injuries. Some survive for a longer period, some die earlier, and it depends on the amount of force and the amount of brain swelling. And in Mr. O'Keefe's case, we had the massive skull fractures of the base of the brain and immediate swelling and subarachnoid and subdural. So he had a large force applied to his head, which caused the brain swelling and the and the progression of the brain stem down through the foramen magnum that stopped the brain. It was a very forceful impact.
You examined his brain after you looked at photographs. You can't tell us objectively when his brain swell started.
It started immediately after impact.
And you can tell us what the progress of that brain swell was by looking at his post-mortem photos.
By looking at the postmortem photos and the postmortem examination, I can tell the degree of force from the extensive skull fractures that were present.
What was the degree of force?
It was medium to large.
Well, that's a wide range. What do you mean? Quantify medium
So I'll
to
strike
large,
the comment,
please.
ask the question, Mr. Brennan.
What does medium to large mean?
Enough to cause a lot of fractures to the skull. He didn't just like sit down and lie down.
If he sat down and lied down, he probably wouldn't have fractured his skull, correct?
That's obvious, yes.
Right. And so when you're telling us you can identify that he immediately died or died within 15 minutes, I'm asking you for objective criteria. For you to give that opinion, I'm asking you what objective information you have. And so you said that there was a large amount of force, correct?
Sure, but
And-
because there were massive skull fractures, and
And-
there's a lot of energy transmitted to the brain, starts swelling immediately
How do you know this wasn't medium force and not large force?
because of the extensive number of skull fractures.
So are you saying it was medium or large force?
Medium to large.
Okay. How much force is that? Can you quantify it?
No.
What other objective criteria do you have to support your opinion that Mr. O'Keefe died within 15 minutes?
My training and experience of seeing thousands of deceased people from head injuries and knowing some of their clinical course when they get immediate medical treatment, they don't survive.
But you would agree many do.
Depends on the case.
And in this case, you didn't have any opportunity to observe the progress of Mr. O'Keefe's injury that night, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow that.
I wasn't there.
You
The body told me what happened to it.
You have no assessment of the development of his brain injury and how much time it took that night, do you?
I do, from understanding the significant skull fractures and the swelling of the brain and the compression of the brainstem that all happened very rapidly because of the amount of force that caused all those skull fractures on the base of the skull that actually then hemorrhaged into his upper eyelids. That's a large amount of force.
Was gross edema found on his brain?
I think it was swollen, yes.
But was that a finding?
Yes.
Where did you see that finding?
Well, in order to have the herniation of the brainstem, the brain swells.
Where did you see that finding?
I can't answer that. I just know it from understanding, looking at the pathology.
So at the end result, at some point, Mr. O'Keefe had gross edema.
In order to get the brain stem hemorrhages, the only way you get that is because the brain has swelled, and there's no, after injury, tissue swells, and there's no place for the brain to go when it swells except down into the natural hole in the bottom of the skull where the spinal cord goes down. So that's where the pressure goes. So that seeing the brainstem herniation tells you that the brain has swollen a lot.
Undoubtedly, but it doesn't tell you when it began to swell or the progress of that swell, does it?
I don't know what you mean.
You see inevitably because of the swelling, there's the suffocation, but when you see that, you don't know when the swelling began or how quickly it progressed. You can't tell that from an autopsy.
Yes, you can, because of the severity of the skull fractures. I know there was a lot of force, and that force applied causes you to go unconscious, then your brain swells. If there was just like one skull fracture, then that's a little bit different. But this was massive skull fractures on the base of the skull. So there's a lot of force applied. So I know because there's a lot of force applied to cause the skull fractures that the brain would swell rapidly.
You would be unable to identify the rapidity of the swelling if you don't know the amount of force. Isn't that fair to say?
Well, I do know the amount of force because of the amount of skull fractures.
In what you know is, in your words, medium to large force.
Yes.
You've heard of periorbital ecchymosis,
Yes.
and that's sometimes called raccoon eyes.
Well, periorbital ecchymosis just means bleeding and bruising around the eyes.
And you saw the bruising around Mr. O'Keefe's eyes, didn't you, in the photographs?
Well, it wasn't bruising caused by blunt force trauma to the eye. It was bleeding in the upper eyelid because the plates above the eye and the base of the skull were fractured by the brain hitting it. So, and that's a result of basilar skull fractures and not the application of force directly to the eye.
Would you agree it takes a few hours for the bleeding to accumulate in the person's eyes?
No, as soon as you break the skull bones and the heart's pumping, the blood comes out of those injuries. It starts to accumulate right away. It starts within minutes, you can see it.
So you would disagree with the suggestion that it takes at least 1 to 2 hours for that bleeding to occur in the eyes. You disagree with that?
I do disagree with that. It starts immediately.
Do you have any studies that you've relied on or literature or support for that?
I understand the physiology of what happens when you get those skull fractures and the density of the blood vessels. And if your heart is pumping, you pump the blood out those broken blood vessels into this small area above the eye. And it can happen within minutes.
Do you have any studies or literature to support that?
That's my training experience. I can't cite you a particular article at this time. I could certainly go look it up and bring it to you.
Okay. Let me ask you questions about the wounds to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head.
Yes.
You see a linear abrasion?
Yes, vertical lines, yes.
Now, would you characterize this as a classic wound caused by falling backwards and landing on your head?
What do you mean, every wound is different?
Every wound is different?
Sure, every person's different, every way you get injured is different.
And so if somebody falls backward on their head and suffers the basal fracture, the wound, from your perspective, can look different.
It depends on the impacting surface.
Wounds on the same surface, say 2 people fell on the same surface, could they have different wounds on the back of the head if they suffered the same injury?
In theory, if they fell, if they rotated their body, if you could reproduce something exactly, then you would see the same wound patterns.
This wound pattern is typical of falling backwards on a hard surface, isn't it?
We know it's from falling backwards and striking something hard.
Can the frozen ground be hard?
A frozen ground can be hard, but it doesn't fit the pattern in this injury.
We'll get to that, but is it
okay.
hard enough to cause a basal fracture?
It can cause a skull fracture.
The frozen ground is different than a sheet of ice, right? It's not smooth and flat like a sheet of ice, is it?
It could be, I guess.
Okay. You mentioned there's some granular patterns in this wound.
Yes.
Didn't you?
Yes.
The area in front of 34 Fairview, the frozen ground, do you know if there was any impediments in the lawn that was frozen?
In the what? Oh, the lawn?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, I saw the scene photographs when the snow was removed, and it was like winter lawn grass, so it was some green, some brown that was pushed down, and like straw that was going different directions, which wouldn't give you that pattern.
Did you see the exact area where Mr. O'Keefe last moved?
I saw that general area, and there were a lot of photographs,
Well,
yes.
You say general area. Can you tell us that you saw photographs of the spot where Mr. O'Keefe was lying when he was found?
Yes, that general area.
Could you see the ground where his head was? Can you identify that?
Yes, with the scene investigation, they shoveled the snow off of that area.
And you had never had a chance to go out to that scene yourself, did you?
No, I just looked at all the photographs.
You cannot see what's under the grass and the dirt, can you?
Well, dirt's under the grass.
Well, do you know if there's any rocks or impediments or bumps?
It was a smooth surface covered with grass.
It was a smooth the front lawn was a smooth
It was
surface?
a flat surface
Flat.
covered with grass.
Okay, and do you know what was under the grass, whether there was any pebbles, rocks, debris?
I didn't see any.
From the photo.
Correct.
But you don't have any firsthand knowledge that exact area where he ended, what the turf was like, do you?
I saw photographs of that lawn where they removed his body from.
So you're relying solely on the photographs, is that fair to say?
Correct.
Do you know if Mr. O'Keefe was wearing anything that could cause abrasions when he landed to cause that scraping pattern in addition to the linear abrasion?
He did have a baseball hat on, but that would not cause that pattern.
The area of the abrasions, is that in the area of the level of where a baseball hat would be on the back of somebody's head?
It could be.
Could be. If somebody hits the ground and falls backwards, can they slide?
And if they're on an incline,
What if they're thrust?
well, if you fall backwards and you fall backwards on an incline, your body might move.
Well, what if you fall backwards on flat ground? Does the body, can it move after it falls?
Not really, maybe a little. If from the momentum of the impact, it might move slightly, but not really.
So when a person falls backwards and lands, you don't think the head has any room for movement?
Not significant.
Well, not significantly, maybe just a quarter inch, half inch.
No, it's possible.
And did you see the scrapes around the wound of Mr. O'Keefe's head?
Of course I saw them, yes.
Okay. And they're all within, what, about an inch?
What are you describing? What part? Are you describing the tearing, the laceration of the scalp, or the vertical abrasions?
The vertical abrasions.
There were maybe an inch and a half.
Inch and a half? Do you think that if someone fell backwards and landed on their head, they could move an inch and a half?
Well, he landed on something that had a ridge on it to cause the laceration in the scalp. And then with a little bit of movement, those vertical scratches were caused by some kind of like pebbly-like surface.
You sworn in first. Counsel, you can keep doing that. Mr. Rose, can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that you will keep that jury in some separate but convenient place until they agree that you not suffer any person to speak to them, nor speak to them yourselves, nor ask them if they agree, nor suffer them to disperse them, they charge their verdict, except by further order of the court, so help you God? Simply because you weren't in the room. Thank you. Is the Commonwealth content with the verdict slip?
Commonwealth's content. So, Your Honor, I understand that you've rejected our proposed verdict slip.
So everybody else can sit down. Mr. Yannetti can stand.
Thank you. I understand that you've rejected our proposed verdict slip. Our concern with this verdict slip is that there are 4 options for, actually more than that, 7 options for guilty verdicts, 1 option for not guilty. And we're concerned that this is too confusing for the jury. So we are asking that there be not guilty options for each of the charges, including the offense charged and each one of the lesser included offenses. We really ran into the same issue last time. I think what complicates it is the fact that there are two theories for two of the lesser included.
Do you suggest that doesn't accurately reflect the law?
It does reflect the law. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it makes things very confusing, and that's why we believe that it cries out for some not guilty option, given the amount of options for convictions on this verdict slip. So
Okay.
we would again ask the court to adopt our proposed verdict slip.
So your proposed verdict slip did not cite any case law. Do you have any case law that supports that proposition, Mr. Yannetti? I have not found any. I've looked.
There's not a lot of case law out there to support this verdict slip either.
Other than that has never been proven, has never been found to be inaccurate.
Not yet.
Okay.
And I mean that
So
with all respect.
that's fine. So your rights are reserved. Does that help you?
Right, well, all we can do is object, Judge, and you make,
Okay.
you make the decision.
Okay.
Judge, the last couple.
If you find authority for that, let me know.
We'll do.
Okay.
The last couple of things, judges, that we were provided with a clean
Laptop?
computer laptop. Thanks. We were, with a clean laptop. Defense counsel had a chance to, or at least defense had a chance to look at it, and I think that's fine. But
All right. So we'll send that in with the exhibits. I need to go edit my charge to fix all the typos.
and then the final thing is I provided counsel with the exhibit list that we had, and it was satisfactory for both sides.
Great.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
All rise to the court, please.
Will the deliberating jurors remain standing? Defendant remains standing. All other parties may be seated.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that 12 deliberating jurors and 6 alternates are present.
Yes.
May I inquire?
Yes.
Mr. Foreman, members of the jury, have you agreed upon a verdict?
Yes.
Thank you. May I see the papers? Mr. Foreman, have the verdict slips been placed in this envelope and have they been in your presence ever since?
Yes.
Mr. Foreman, on docket number 2282CR117001, murder in the second degree, what say you? Is the defendant at the bar guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
So say you, Mr. Foreman? So say you?
Charlie.
No. Do you agree?
Yes.
Do all of you agree? Yes. Thank you. 002, what say you? Is the defendant at the bar not guilty or guilty?
Not guilty.
Of.
Is not guilty or guilty of that charge or any lesser included charge? Thank you. Specifically, number 5, operating under the influence of liquor by operating a motor vehicle with a blood alcohol level of 0.08 or greater. Correct?
Yes.
So say you, Mr. Foreman?
Guilty.
So say you all?
Yes.
003, what say you? Is the defendant at the bar leaving the scene after accident resulting in death? Is the defendant not guilty or guilty?
Not guilty.
So say you, Mr. Foreman? So say you all? Jurors, hearken your verdict as the court records that you upon your oath say the defendant on 001 is not guilty, on 002 is guilty of operating under the influence of liquor, and 003 not guilty. Thank you.
All right. Jurors, everybody please be seated. Jurors, we thank you for your service. We're going to send you back. Your service is complete. I'd like to come back and talk to you for a little bit afterwards. So thank you very much.
All rise. Jurors, follow me.
Media, please exit the courtroom immediately.
Karen Reed?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Tony,
Hold on,
not yet.
hold on,
Not
everyone.
yet.
Karen Reed. Ms. Reed, can I have your attention? As required by statute, I must inform you that the records regarding the charges that you have been found not guilty will be sealed by the Commissioner of Probation by the court unless you notify the Commissioner of Probation in writing within 10 days that you do not want these records sealed. To request that these records not be sealed, you may use the Request Not to Seal form, which is posted on the trial court's website on mass.gov. I cannot accept the form here in court. You must submit it to the Commissioner of Probation at the address provided on the form. Please be aware that if the records regarding the charges which you have been found not guilty are sealed, you will be unable to access the sealed record of the not guilty dispositions or any other records regarding those charges. If you want copies of any documents regarding those charges before the records are sealed, you should request copies from the court within 10 days. Do you understand? Thank you.
All right, so we need a date for sentencing. Can we do it next week?
We would be prepared to go forward today.
Okay.
Perhaps we could approach sidebar briefly.
Okay.
Be seated.
All right, so Ms. Giannetti, you're ready to go forward today as well?
Yes, please.
Okay, Mr. Brennan, what's the Commonwealth's recommendation?
Your Honor, the Commonwealth moves for sentencing. We recommend probation, 1 year, 24D program.
So the standard that everybody else gets on their first time OUI?
Certainly.
Okay.
We ask that she be treated no differently, no better.
So I'm happy to do it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
1 year probation, 1 year probation on docket number 002, the lesser included offense of operating under the influence. 1 year probation. Thank you. The 24D program is. Thank you.
Immediately. All rise.
Goodbye.